in calling the meeting to order and conduct roll call. Commissioner Andrades. Present. Commissioner Gabriel. Commissioner Fuentes.
Present.
Commissioner Lewis, joining us shortly. Commissioner Mack.
Present.
Chairman says present. Second, Vice Chair Murray.
Present.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Commissioner Flatter. Present. Commissioner Stein. Present. Commissioner Thomas. Present. Commissioner Yap. Commissioner Yap here. Great. Okay, we have a quorum. I will move us to any welcome remarks that we have from elected officials. I can see Councilmember Oscar here. Councilmember, can you join us, please?
Thank you very much. I had such a great time on Saturday. I decided to come back. And I actually had a couple of things that I didn't bring on Saturday back for, but it being in the building tonight and being myself available, I really did enjoy time on Saturday. You heard all of that, and fortuitously, coincidentally, some of the issues you're discussing, some of the things that I discussed. I want to dial it down to something more mundane and more local for me, but very important to the 1-5, very important to, I think, good governance. I want to talk about 650 at 7 in the Harbor Department. I have a couple of pending motions that went through council and have been delivered to you, and I'm sure they are less important than anything on your agenda, but I want to take the opportunity to speak about them. I will also say that earlier in the year, we did have a measure on the ballot, or the past year, we had a measure on the ballot that established greater local representation on the Harbor Commission. Very important to my communities of Wilmington and San Pedro. That passed. I did not press for that election to do the following two things. I'm just going to ask you to consider, and I will provide language. Each have to do with the relationship between the Harbor Department, the Harbor Commission, and responsibility to the local community. There is something that exists now in policy at the Harbor Department called the PAIP, the Public Access and Infrastructure Program, and it is a set aside of 10% of the operating revenues of the port that goes back into creating access to the waterfront. Basically, it's not a mitigation fund, but it is an opportunity to use those public lands, which are subject to the Title Trust Act, and those dollars that are generated on the public lands to make sure that some of those dollars are used to do things like waterfront development. People can have access to the water, and it's been remarkable. It's been really, really important. And one of the issues that we worked on hard is to make sure that it's equitable across the waterfront. Been very focused on making sure Wilmington, which is the predominant Latino community, and San Pedro are treated equitably, and a lot of resources going into Wilmington because it's been traditionally overlooked. That's an aside. Why am I saying all this? Because it's now just a policy, and I think the policy is rooted in the fact that these are public lands, and they are operated on behalf of the state of California by the Port of Los Angeles as a trustee. And while it is good that there's a policy, I don't want that policy to ever go away based on the vagaries of politics. And so I like to see it institutionalized in the charter, and its roots will be, again, that the responsibility of the Port of Los Angeles as good managers of the state lands is that they contribute operating funds back into the local community. And I think that this will be our opportunity to make it more than just infrastructure, because you'll run out of infrastructure projects eventually. I think it needs to go from infrastructure to other opportunities like underwriting the cost of underrepresented communities, to be able to have conduct business on the waterfront, things like that. I will give you language. The other is also related to the fact that these are tied lands. They are operated on behalf of the state of California by the Port of LA as a trustee. And it has to do with the manner in which property is leased, developed, modified in any way, and then delivered to an operator like a terminal, for example. I'll use a terminal as the example. And the issue is whether or not these properties are being used in a way that we are maintaining and developing good jobs for the local community or the entire community of the state of California, but typically it's going to be local community. And this goes to the issue of automation. Just cut right through it. We have, currently, we do not have a policy or a clarity on the following. When the Port Commission makes a decision that Pier 500, let's say, I can think of a new one, Pier 500 is going to be developed, it's going to be leased out to a company. We don't look at the issue of how many jobs were there before the project, how many jobs are created during the project, and how many jobs will there be for the people of the state of California after the project is done and it's moving forward. And I have asked the commission to make that a standing policy, and they've done it partially. There's some materials in the applications that do that, where those questions are asked. There's no requirement that the commission, in a setting like this, in front of public, in front of God and everybody, as my grandma used to say, has to analyze that, has to say it out loud. I am not asking, because I don't think it would be lawful that the language saying if a number of jobs go down between one company and another company, one technology, another technology, that it has to be denied. I'm just saying it has to be recognized that one of the benefits or one of the responsibilities of the Port Commission and the Port of Los Angeles, as a trustee for the as a trustee managing properties for the state of California, is that they also have to look at the secondary economic benefits of what they're doing. It's not just about moving a pair of sunglasses from China to the sunglass hut in Chicago. It's also about what do you do for the local economy, what do you do for the economy of the city of Los Angeles. I'll get your language on that as well. They each would go into the section 650 at 7, probably around the duties and responsibilities of the port leasing and around funds. There's a very specific section on funds and how funds are used and how we make sure that they are used just for timely purposes. Realize it's super technical and it's less important than what we're talking about today, but it is something I want to put in this extreme that's heard from me and understood why I'm in the same language.
Thank you for coming and providing us that. Do any commissioners have any questions? Well, thank you, council member.
I'm sitting around for a little bit. Thank you very much again for all your hard work.
Commissioners, for the benefit of the public and for all of us, I wanted to let you all know we have, as you noticed, a regular meeting and a special meeting this evening. The way that we are going to conduct this is, and for the public, you may want to note here, I will call public comment first on the regular meeting. Then we will do the neighborhood council fee impact statements on the regular meeting. And then approval of the minutes on the regular meeting. After that, we will recess and begin a special meeting where we will take comment on the item of the special meeting and consideration of the item of the special meeting. And then conclude the special meeting and go back into our regular meeting. I understand that it may sound complicated, and so I will help guide us as we go through that process. So again, I'm about to open public comment on the regular meeting items. And so with that, I am going to hand it over to our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to call all names 3 at a time. With the regular meeting, we do have general public comment and 1 item. So that's maximum of 2 minutes. And again, we're going to call people 3 at a time. I've got David, Leslie, then come up, Kate. David. David, Leslie. Leslie, since you're here, if you want to go ahead and get started. On clock ready. All righty, 1 or 2 minutes. All right, we're going to get.
Hello, my name is Leslie Johnson and I'm with the Community Coalition, which is a member of the, I'm sorry, am I able to speak the clock?
No, you're good. No, I'm setting the time. Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
My name is Leslie Johnson, I'm with Community Coalition, which is a member of the Push LA Coalition, which is committed to ending racial profiling and improving traffic safety in the city of Los Angeles. I'm here today to ask the Charter Commission, since 2020, Push LA has been working on efforts to end pretextual stops by the LAPD, as the tactic has proven to be ineffective in terms of improving public safety, and has in fact caused trauma and harm to Angelenos, particularly in LA's communities of color. I'm here today to ask the Charter Commission to prioritize police reform in the review process, specifically by addressing the systemic harm caused by pretextual stops and ineffective accountability structures. I'm hopeful that the current reform process will result in substantive improvements around how government responds to local needs, specifically in terms of the police department's fundamental duty of enforcing federal laws, responding to emergencies, and improving mechanisms for public input. Thank you for your time.
All right, David. One or 2 minutes, you guys, please. Ready when you are.
Good evening, distinguished members. Beginning ladies and gentlemen of the audience, my name is David Ontiveros. I'm a resident of Los Angeles and also Department of Water and Power. And also Department of Water and Power from Brody. I was with you guys Saturday at the weekend meeting and basically I brought up the issue of proprietary board Article 6 of the Charter Reform. And I noticed that it was that information you guys were taking any, particularly from the personnel director, that she would kind of confirm that that said about how long it takes for people in the system. And she mentioned I had names article for employees, contracts, and she do a lot of stuff actually guys concerning everything that goes on with the personnel department in order to get people hired in the city and in particular Department of Water and Power. I sit on the joint labor management committees, Department of Water and Power and the union, so I get to hear that behind the scenes, what goes on, trying to get people hired into the department. And the personnel department seems to be the issue that kind of blocks us from going forward. There's a lot of information that you may not be privileged to, about that thrown at you, presented actually Saturday. You might be a little bit confusing, and I just want to say that this opportunity, this tender opportunity to give them an adjustment to the Article 6 proprietary board consideration is really groundbreaking in terms of being able to help bringing other people from disenfranchised communities. I heard that out from members on Saturday. If you were to see what we do on how to bring a high standard of living, Mexican high standard of living.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As I said.
And then Michael, after Michael's gonna be Rob, Jeremy, and Michael.
Yeah, two housekeeping announcements. One is I want to welcome Commissioner Lewis to the meeting, and two, just a reminder that we do have Spanish translation available, and I would ask the translator to come up real quick just to make an announcement.
Hola, sí, buenos días a todos. Tenemos traducción en español. Si alguien necesita interpretación, por favor señale que tenemos interpretación disponible. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
1 or 2 minutes.
1 minute, please. Mine Marvis, 86 residents, speaking as an individual for myself. First of all, I'd like to thank Tim McCosker for being here. Thank you, Mr. McCosker. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Number 2, and on topic of civil service, I'd like to urge the Charter Commission to consider having the Civil Service Commission do a presentation on solely on the topic of civil service. Because I know the General Manager Phillips. I'm very grateful that she attended last Saturday, very knowledgeable, very kind lady. It's a complicated process, but I think we should dedicate time on reviewing the exams. Because the gentleman before me said that expedite hiring of non-sworn civilian employees. So when the economy improves in LA, hopefully next year, that we'll be able to expedite hire of civilians to provide city services to all Angelenos. And that I also like to bring to your attention that, we consider fair reps and other, recommendations as well.
Okay, one or 2 minutes,
Like 2 minutes.
and go.
For months, I've had so many people inside and outside of the building ask me whether this commission has been set up to fail. I really do wonder now, basic things like the accurate posting of a comment or a challenge. The staff report came in after the deadline for written public comment, riddled with errors. The audio quality for your live streams is absolutely unbearable to listen to from home. We have an outreach consultant pumping out graphics for these meetings was great, but did you notice that it's not missing a website? Something basic? We keep on hearing about being short-staffed, and I'm sorry, the County Reform Task Force has a slim staff. The City Redistricting Commission had 4 staff and some consultants. A Lake USD's Commission had 2 staff. This is the easy part. Most of the work product that has come out so far has been from presenters, not staff. The wheels are gonna come off very soon when things pick up. We get vague promises of Charter 101, that should have happened 2 months ago. We get promises of Budget 101, that should have happened last week. CAO, city attorney, and I staff here, but the commission staff are here for a reason. I talked about the option to resign previously, and I wasn't kidding. There's no shame in resigning, tapping out. There are other people who will step up. On the flip side, maybe some of you are looking to stick around, need a threat to resign, so that Mayor Basson and Council President actually take your needs seriously and support you. Again, I have huge concerns with this vibe-based approach to moving topics forward. It leaves a lot unknown, too much discretion to staff and committee. I've written some comments about the omissions, but we need to, in short, do better. Otherwise, there's no point in doing any of this. I'm old enough to remember past reform efforts and why they failed. We can't repeat those mistakes. The revised schedule calls for some of your commission meetings to be converted to committee meetings. More presentation, great, but we need to talk policy. You will, as a full commission, somehow in a single meeting in 2 months, approve an initial set of recommendations on both government structure and better government. That will not happen in one meeting. It will not. It is not possible.
Thank you, and time. One or 2 minutes,
2 minutes, please.
and go.
Alright, thank you. Afternoon, commissioners, Jerry Payne, representative of Dallas, California, member of the RLA Coalition, here to speak on language access and justice. So, people in the city of Los Angeles speak more than 100 languages, with many navigating day-to-day life with limited English proficiency. State and federal laws require cities like Los Angeles to provide reasonable language access in city services. And in 2021, then Mayor Garcetti issued Executive Directive 32, mandating that city departments create language access plans to be reviewed by a statewide language access coordinator. Over the past several years, departments have been submitting these plans. However, often the plans lack substantive reforms or are aspirational and never implemented because of budgetary constraints. This is unacceptable to language justice advocates, especially when it's required by state and federal law and in our executive directive that happens to Los Angeles to provide services without discrimination. I ask that addressing language access and justice be discussed as an item to reform within the city charter, and I urge the commission to make a motion to agendize it for a comprehensive discussion. And with the remainder of my time, I just want to second the comments and public comments from Michelle A. In terms of police accountability, oversight, and the need to address the hardest cause by the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Thank you, and Jerry, Michael, Chauncey, Stacy, and LA Valley GC.
Again, my client time, you're here because of the red tape scandal and the insufficiency of single seat representation to represent the diversity in Los Angeles. And I and others who've been arguing for proportional ranked choice voting here have wanted to show that multi-seat districts elected proportionally will give better representation than single seats, regardless of how many seats you have. Our presentation was just changed from November 12th to next Thursday. And we had asked both the academic group and the nonprofit that does mapping, just like the Independent Redistricting Commission does, to see how drawing districts affect representation for where people really live. So we're gonna have some very general stuff for you next Thursday, but we're returning to your October meeting on council enlargement. Where we will have more detailed maps, so can we keep Koreatown together? What happens in South Los Angeles, the demographics change from black to brown, et cetera, et cetera. How many API people can actually get elected in proportional systems? So that's number one. The other thing is when we think about per capita representation, there's a difference in single seat and multi-seat in this way. In single seat per capita, we say, okay, one rep per 100,000 people. But when you have an election of 100,000 people and it's 45 45,000 people didn't vote for a candidate that got represented, that won. In Portland, where they just went to proportional ranked choice voting, 87% of voters cast a vote for at least one candidate that was elected in their district. Per capita means something very different in a more inclusive system. Thank you.
Chauncey, Stacy, and Alex. Chauncey. 2 minutes. Ready to go.
Hello, Commission. My name is Chauncey Smith, and I'm with an organization called Catalyst California. I'm an associate director there, and we are a member of a coalition called Push LA, which stands for Promoting Unity, Safety, and Health in Los Angeles. Push LA is committed to ending racial profiling and improving traffic safety in the city of Los Angeles. And I'm here today to ask all the commissioners to prioritize police reform and public safety in the review process, specifically by addressing issues of systemic harm caused by racial profiling and ineffective police accountability measures. To be more specific, pretextual stops disproportionately harm low-income communities of color. And at the same time, they have a weak outcome when it comes to improving traffic safety, as well as a significant harm because they erode public trust in our system of safety and the faith in LAPD. So with these ideas in mind, I'm here to ask the commission once again to agendize policing and community safety issues. With all the events that we have coming on the forefront in the near future, whether it's the Olympics in 2028, the Super Bowl in 2027, the World Cup next year, safety is going to be of paramount importance. And if the people of Los Angeles don't have faith in the integrity of our policing system, and more broadly our community safety system, we're essentially putting ourselves in a significant deficit. The commission has a unique opportunity to take this up by adding it to its agenda as a topic of discussion so that you can get more public input, hear from more community members about the different ideas and visions that they have when it comes to the city of Los Angeles moving forward. Thank you for your time.
One or 2 minutes. And
Tardy is the status quo for council. They start letting you know quorum is often broken too. During public comment, members leave the room. We should create severe penalties for this behavior that keeps happening. Keep on with reform, don't stop. With the people that had enough. Keep on with reform, don't stop. City council is corrupt during fiscal emergencies. Council shouldn't get their full salaries, and their pay should be no more than double the area median. City attorney and controller must remain as elected and not change to appointments. Keep on with reform, don't stop. We the people that had enough. Keep on with reform, don't stop. City council is corrupt. I just want to note that some people came and asked you to pull that sheet, so just make sure you call for anyone who's not a fan. Thank you.
Appreciate that, that's on this for my era. Let's see, after Stacy, Elliott Valley. Elliott Valley, there you go. One or two?
2 minutes. News begin. Alright, so, there's been kind of like a one-sided, silent war on the public input, from the city. I believe the public needs to get actually more time, like 20+ years ago. They get less time to give their comment downtown. There's a lot of parallels between this process and the last process that are a little alarming. With the event that was set to kick off this process, just like last time, is probably like the smallest part of the conversation. Not a lot of talk has been around really what spurred this, this wasn't just spontaneous, allegedly. This was all because of the audio leaks that came out that involved a handful of city council members that were heading up the city to, profit their own political careers and whatnot. And to disenfranchise other groups. And now that those members are no longer part of council, it's kind of seems like it's all in the past and we don't have to address that part anymore. A lot of the conversations have been around planning, land use and all these different things, but that wasn't really what got us here. It was allegedly those leaks. Just like how last time allegedly was the Valley Secession moment. Was supposedly what started that whole process, but then a lot of other things got touched that had nothing to do with that. So, I just want the public to be aware that there's a lot more going on than they're letting on. We need to fight for our public comment right, we need to reinstate phone comment committees as well as the general comment downtown. This is a city of 4 million people and everybody can get down there and they still limit public comment when people are down there, they'll cut it off arbitrarily.
Same.
The council president is allowed to have an open disdain for the public and just get up and walk around, chew gum on the mic. Really have just complete straight disrespect for the public and it's gotta change. You can do something about it with the chart. But I had a salary that should. Excuse me. Sorry about we get 2 minutes, please, that's right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Nicholas Caputo, neighborhood council Michael Barr, founder of Digital Adventures and City Management. I just want to give meetings because this work is historic and urgent, and the trust of Angelinos depends on us getting anti-corruption right. With that, here are a select few 8 points I'd like to provide. First, the Ethics Commission must be independently funded, staffed, and empowered with stronger whistleblower protections and mandatory ethics training for all elected officials, so integrity is an optional required strengthening. Second, we need to end pay-to-play period. Ban contributions from anyone with business before the city and require real-time disclosure of lobbying contacts, donations, and development meetings for a public online dashboard within 72 hours. Third, establish an independent anti-corruption office or inspector general with subpoena power, authority to audit procurement land use, and even suspend council members for proven corruption by a lawsuit, subject to an override only by a 75% supermajority vote of 30 years after suspension. Neighborhood councils must also have a direct role. By majority vote across the council within a district, they should be able to trigger an ethics review of their representative when they see misconduct. That gives communities a real check on power. Fifth, prohibit clean record deals. Personnel files must reflect reality, never be sanitized. Someone behaves inappropriately that cannot be scrubbed from a record. On representation, I urge you to expand the city council to 29 members with an automatic trigger for a ballot measure whenever any district exceeds 150,000 residents on average and after every census. That way voters themselves can decide whether further expansion is needed. Electoral reforms are equally vital. Ranked choice voting to strengthen democracy and expand public financing so grassroots candidates can compete without relying on special interests. And finally, adopt a comprehensive anti-corruption framework modeled on national best practices. Require annual lobbyist re-registration with full disclosure, and mandate a charter reform commission like this one every 20 years to keep government evolving with our society. We don't have much time, so each reform must serve multiple purposes. In politics, strong representation, and city government where leaders be equal. Please be bold enough to do the thing.
Over time, check, was there anyone who did get a chance to sign? Yes? So, yes, that's you. What are you? And go.
Hello, I wasn't sure you guys would come today, so I was ready. First off, city council meetings. Yeah, public comment, people should be allowed to actually comment. Marquise limits who gets to talk, and it just seems unfair. Also the etiquette of city council members should be looked at, so like, you should have real like rules and like. The city council members are not able to be there. But they can't just walk in the middle of someone's comments. They literally don't listen to us. It's very inappropriate and unprofessional. They're on the phones, they're laughing and not paying attention to us. The mayor should have quarterly town halls. We're in a state of emergency right now, and the mayor has not had one town hall for the community. That is a problem. City council members should also have comments. This building is for the community. There needs to be more connection with the community on a daily basis even. And it seems like it's not. Police reform, there's so many issues with police, the racism, the way they treat protesters. They used over 1,000 rubber bullets on June 8th. That is on the Guardian, look it up. That is not okay. The LAPD should not be attacking protesters. That's our First Amendment right, if you know that that's under attack by our government. So local government should try to protect it. Okay, and yeah. Chief, we should be able to get rid of Chief McDonald. I know y'all can do that, but I just want to put on the record, he is not helping this.
Same flag. Once, twice, and that includes public comment on for the general meeting.
Right, are there any neighborhood councils with approved community impact statements? Alright, seeing none, I will move on to approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Murray, second by Commissioner Field. Is there any discussion on the motion? Alright, seeing none, is there any objection to approving the minutes? Alright, seeing none, thank you, Commissioners, the minutes are approved. Okay, without objection, I would like to recess the regular meeting to go into the special meeting. Is there any objection? Alright, seeing none, we are now in our special meeting. I'm going to conduct a roll call again. Commissioner Andrades. Commissioner Field. Commissioner Fuentes.
Present.
Commissioner Lewis. Present. Commissioner Madden.
Present.
Chairman says present. Second, Vice Chair Murray.
Present.
Vice Chair Sanchez. Commissioner Schlager. Present. Commissioner Stein. Present. Commissioner Thomas. Present. Commissioner Yap. Present. Okay, we will now go into public comments on our special meeting. I will hand over to the executive director.
Since we didn't have the silent sheet, I'll just go ahead and let people, come up. This is a maximum of 1 minute for this special item. Yeah, go ahead. See you.
Just to be clear, I wouldn't be as concerned if we had 15 Timacosters. There are a few on board who is close to devoted as the city and their district is him. I'm convinced that he has a secret back tattoo that says to live and die in 1-5. To get back to the subject matter jurisdiction, I will just say it is weird that we don't have any amendment on the proposed changes to the bylaws. I don't know how that's kosher with the Brown Act, but all right. I'm okay with changing the bylaws, but we should be transparent, so everybody here voting on it, and everybody in the public can actually weigh in. We have no idea what you're voting on. As to the bylaws, there is one easy trick to getting more public comment. 100% guaranteed, remote public comment. For some reason, we haven't taken that up. The County Reform Task Force has it, our Ethics Commission has it, the LA City Council Redistricting Commission, so this is 1,500 public speakers in their process. Are you gonna get close to that? I think it's time for us to start thinking about remote public comment, like, long overdue.
And next.
Talk about it over there, talk about us. Well, I wasn't aware that you guys didn't do public, I'm sorry, remote comment, so that needs to be done ASAP. It's at this point, ancient technology known as the telephone. And we've had video conference technology since as far as there's Edward R. Murrow with like fireside chats with like celebrities and whatnot. And being somebody over, the airwaves, that was like 70 years ago. So there really isn't a reason why we shouldn't have like video remote comment, so the public can actually show their face. And people can get a sense of like, seeing each other, being involved, because we have a considerably low like civic engagement. As far as the bylaws, something should be put in there that forces council members and or the mayor to be here for a certain number of these meetings. So that they have to sit here and listen to the public, and that they can't only be, in the room with public comment, way back in the, back room or behind a whole wall of police and things. Thank you.
Last one.
Okay, all right, if we're going for a few bylaw amendments, so it'd probably say public comment tracking, keeping and publishing public log of how many comments received and from what mode, in person, online, or phone, and ensure all are part of the official record and recording for them are part of the official record, and just making that abundantly clear on the actual website that's here. Also a hybrid public comment requirement, so allowing both in-person and remote public comment. That's very, regardless of how easy that is to do, I do think that that's very necessary, because it's just not possible to have this be easy for anyone to get to at any given point in time. There's a lot of good ideas that are sitting, I think we should be able to hear all. That was the output.
Last call. And thank you, public, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we now move on to item number 1 for our special meeting, which is a discussion of an impossible amendment to the commission bylaws. Before I hand it over to Commissioner Yap, I do want to let the commissioners know that I will be proposing a motion at our next in-person meeting relevant to virtual public comments. I will be posting it in advance so that the public and the commissioners can see it and have time to deliberate. So I did want to let you know that that will be forthcoming. I will hand it over to Commissioner Yap, who requested this item on the agenda.
Commissioner Yap, thank you. So in order to begin, would we begin with a motion, because then I would identify the motion for us to discuss. Sure. The motion is to amend the bylaws by replacing the second sentence in section 3A of the bylaws with the following. Members of each committee will be assigned among those commissioners volunteering for such committee. Each committee will be comprised of either 3 or 5 commissioners. And each committee chair will be selected by a majority vote of the applicable members of a committee. If the number of volunteers for a committee is 3 or 5 commissioners, the committee shall be comprised of such volunteering commissioners. If, however, more than 5 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the commissioners receiving the top 5 most votes of the commission shall comprise that committee. If 4 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the commissioners receiving the top 3 most votes of the commission will comprise that committee. Finally, if less than 3 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the subject area and purview of such committee shall be divided between the remaining committees as proposed by the chair and approved by a majority vote of the commission.
So is there a second? A second. Second by Commissioner Stein. Commissioner Yap, you can speak on your motion.
Thank you. So the intent behind this is to move the committee appointments to both those that are volunteering for certain committees and also to the overall commission, because much of what the work here we're doing will be reviewed by the committee, although it will also be ultimately approved by the overall commissioner, the overall commission. We understand that at the committee level, there will be a lot of discussion. Agendas will be decided upon and maybe matters will be focused on. So I would say that the work of the committees is a very important matter. As in looking at the committee assignments, it would be best to have the most inclusive committee of committees, and also those that are most we'll call it passionate about the topics and which are that are involved. It also would be appropriate to keep in mind those cases where appointees were from this commission were made by one party, that they would comprise a majority of a committee. Because that would, so the idea is spreading out those that are in a particular committee that were appointed by one particular official. This also will allow us to have more of a robust discussion about what each of the commissioners brings, to the extent that there are more volunteers. But if there aren't more volunteers, then we could, proceed as is. And in many cases, if volunteers do not decide upon a particular committee, that means the work of that committee is not speaking to the commissioners here, and could be perhaps shared by the existing committees that are. So I'll pause there, and if there are other questions about this motion, I have to answer.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes. I have Commissioner Thomas and then Commissioner on the left, Commissioner Thomas.
We've heard, oh. Oh, no, I just.
I got you, sorry. Yeah.
Let me try to figure out where to start. I don't know if it's appropriate to say that I agree. If it's appropriate to say, maybe I need to ask you, that I agree with the public comment that I've heard regarding that I agree with what public comment, with the issue of public comment and both city council meetings. And that being said, I deliberately wanted to be on the personnel committee because I knew that they handled LAPD. But there were other committees that I wanted to be on as well. And what it feels like to me is that the assumption has already been made in terms of how these committees, what work is going to come out of these committees. Now, that is conjecture. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it feels to me. And I think the state of Los Angeles, we are in that. We have ICE, we have protesters that are attacked. This is ridiculous. I mean, I ran across an activist the other day in a wheelchair. In a wheelchair. How did she get to be in a wheelchair? Because she was at a protest and the police beat her up. She required surgery. The surgery got botched. So the sacrifice that she made for speaking against what I would consider, I would consider what is happening with ICE and some of what happens with policing. If there is a such thing as continues to be pointed out in terms of activists that they are domestic terrorists, it's the kind of thing that Trump is trying to say. And I'm trying to figure out, how is the city of Los Angeles doing anything different? How are they not taking at least a half a page out of his book? Because at the end of the day, no one should be able to be thrown out of a given public comment. I personally witnessed Errol Summers, the police commissioner, when he came to the San Fernando Valley and they had a meeting. I saw him stop someone from speaking. And let me give you the scenario. There was a white Jewish lady. She's a lovely lady. I just mentioned that because I lead with that missing. I want you to know what I'm talking.
Period.
She said they kicked out, the police had detained and harassed a 70-plus-year-old man. Said they threw him out of the meeting. He wasn't saying anything inappropriate. They threw him out of the meeting and the police said he walked out too quickly. He walked out of the meeting too quickly. And so I started live streaming and I contacted our area director of the NAACP. And I wanted him to see what was happening in the San Fernando Valley. Not long after that, they let him go. Then there was another young man, brilliant, a black man, brilliant, speaking about the issues with the police commission. They stopped him and threw him out. Then there was this lovely Jewish white lady who came to the mic and said, I'm gonna speak, and I wish y'all would coming from y'all. That's black vernacular, y'all. That's black. She didn't say that, but I mean that's what she said. That's what she said to me. And she said, I'm gonna speak as long as I want to. Amen. And that lovely lady did just that. And after she wasn't thrown out, after that, she went to the back of the room and the police surrounded her as if they were going to throw her out. I said, you put your hands on that white woman, all of y'all are gonna be looking for a job. And what did they do? They backed up and left her alone. Now, in case y'all don't understand that I have a t-shirt, favorite t-shirt that I wear, it says, Dear Police, I'm a white woman. I want, and what I'm getting at is, and I've said this over and over, and I don't know if y'all think I'm just talking, and I'm not gonna be cut off again. I'm gonna talk as long as I want to because enough black people have not been in these meetings speaking. So please, Mr. Chair, don't cut me off. If we have to be here till 12 o'clock at night, don't cut me off. Because I volunteered to be here, and this is important to me. And just on a side note, and any commissioners who do not have the time to focus on this work, maybe you should have decided not to participate in this work. And I'm not saying that to anybody in general, but I'm tired of hearing the conversation that we don't have time, I'm just tired I'm tired of hearing it in city council. I was thrown out of city council. Why? Because I refuse to let that guy who stands there every single city council meeting use the N-word 3-4 times in my presence. Yes. I refuse that. SWAT stickers. This is ridiculous. And we talk about freedom of speech. There is no freedom of speech for people who are fighting for folks on the ground. There's no freedom of speech when you're speaking for the marginalized and the locked out. There is always a way to shut that down. There's always a way to shut that down. And so what I'm saying is that in the way that I see this committee, the way these committees have been structured, the types of committees that we have. There ought to be an anti-hate committee. Yeah. There ought to be an anti-hate committee, and it should involve our approach to dealing with ICE. There ought to be, there ought to be a specific committee that deals with police budget, because everybody's been talking about police reform. But let me tell you what really happens with police reform. When they say police reform, what they will then say is, well, we need to retrain. And I meet with the chief once a quarter or once a month, often. And when they say police reform, what they end up saying is, we need training. Well, if you need new training, then you need new training dollars. And so what happens with police reform is they get more money and they then buy more military style weapons. Let's go. That's what they do. And I'm saying this, you know, I'm saying this because, you know, in my meetings with the chief, I just found out that whenever we would meet with the chief as the NAACP, it would be nothing but black officers. I said, I didn't know we had anything. There would be nothing but black officers in the room. I kind of liked them. Unfortunately for me, right? And this is the thing. I've been told that that's been disbanded. And my number one question for the chief of police, when I hear people talk about reform, you want to reform policing because of what happens to black and brown people and the marginalized. That's what you say you want to reform them for. And the reform is always, how do we engage black and brown people? This is my question that I've asked to the police, and it's two of them. Do white officers, do black officers have to be trained on how to talk to white people when they stop them? No, they do not. When the police kill somebody who is unarmed, are they drug tested? Are they drug tested? I think that needs to be in the chart. They need to be drug tested. Because if you know the data, their own data. That's why you gotta be careful letting professors don't sit on these kind of things. The data suggests that a high percentage of them participate in domestic violence, alcoholism, sexual assault. Amen. If you read Norman Stanley's book, who is a former San Diego police chief, they can't stand him. His book, Breaking Rank. He was the police chief of San Diego and the police chief of Seattle. He says in his book that they are trained to stop young black men, but not any young black men. Only young black men that present as if they are not afraid of them. Right. And I will add something. I don't understand why the police in city council chambers, why so many have to be here? I've never seen any violence taking place, except our speech is violence. We are treated like someone trying to harm this city simply because we're tired. We're tired of being profiled. We're tired of people pretending to be afraid of us and making an argument for taking our life. We're tired of mothers crying. I've seen people come to the city council meeting and the police commission meeting who have lost their children, who have been murdered by the police. And they cut them off. If you're going to be a public servant, you need to take as much time as the public needs you to take to listen to their issues and to come up with viable solutions. And this is the thing. The community knows what they need. They don't have a solution, they just don't listen. They have a solution, You just don't listen. And what I am saying is, what I'm saying about this, we don't, there's not a lot of us, we don't have a lot of, I thought we would have 5 police commissioners. And for people who say, I don't wanna be on this commission, I got too much, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. You know, I'm not judging you at all. We all have our schedules. We are all very busy. But what I am saying is, I'm here because I want to hear the voices of the people who never get heard. And so, whatever amount of time it takes, I'm willing to put forward that time. But what I'm not gonna do, I'm not gonna play a political game. I'm not gonna play politics. As usual, I'm not gonna do it because it is politics as usual that has ruined this city. And at the end of the day, the people who are harmed the most are those who are most vulnerable. And just as I said at the first meeting that I attended, we don't need to cut off public comment. If commissioners have to leave because they have things to do, then they have to leave because they have things to do. But I'm gonna stay as long as I can to hear from the people because I want the work that I do to be reflective of all of Los Angeles. I always speak in terms of Black folks specifically, and everybody else generally. I do that because if I don't do it, Black issues don't get on the table. Even when there are Black elected officials. And so at the end of the day, we need to take a closer look and have a more democratic process as it relates to these committee appointments. Not necessarily because we suspect any impropriety, my brother in that black shirt. Oh, and not because we are saying that there is any impropriety. But it's the optics. It's the optics. How do we, if we wanna fix a city that we know is broken, and y'all, Los Angeles is broken, whether you wanna admit it or not. To have all of these people who have been indicted, to have corruption mentioned in every one of the meetings that we've had. What are we doing different? We're trying to model the way we work behind the way, no disrespect to our city council person, you know, behind the way politicians work. I'm not a politician. And I don't want to be one. I am someone who ran for the sixth district and, well, didn't really run. I paid $600 so that Black people in the sixth district could have a voice. I didn't, and you know, and the only way that anybody would listen to Black people is if I was debating with the sixth district candidate. I should not have had to do that. But that is where we are. That is where we are. And I mean what I say. Something has to change. We have to work together. We have people being snatched from their home. It's rumored that some of the folks who are snatching these people and they have these masks on and we don't even know who they are people that Donald Trump pardoned. Oh.
January 6th.
What did I say, what?
How in the world? People died on January 6th. People died. And if we don't get this right, we have an opportunity to make Los Angeles what I would think God intended to be. Yes, I say God, because that's the power by which I say what I say, and why I'm unafraid and unapologetic. We have an opportunity to get this right. It can't be politics as usual. I don't know who is a mayoral appointee. I didn't even know how I got here until I was informed. Thank you. The mayor shouldn't have 2 people in one committee making the majority. Shouldn't be. Should not be.
That's not real.
Did we just say that?
There's
Should not be. There should be a mayoral appointee on every committee. We're not trying to lock her out. We're not trying to lock her out. We're trying to make it equitable. And for no other reason. For the optics. Because again, of all of the commissioners on here, I was the one that was threatened. Because of my refusal to choose the candidate that this gentleman wanted me to choose. I was the one. Me mentioning this mayor's name caused me, if I wasn't from the hood, I would have feared for my life, but I'm not. But caused me to be threatened, to be told what I will do to you, what I'm going to do to you, to the point where this person had to be held back. Police all through the building, I didn't see one of them come to my aid. There ought to be even though it's under the personnel, if we talked seriously about the structure by which policing is funded, we couldn't get this wrong. What lets us know that what we're doing isn't resonating with the people is because the people ain't here. They don't trust that any significant transformative change is going to take place. They don't trust it. And all of us who have volunteered, we did it with the best of intentions. But it may not look like that if we don't present ourselves in a particular way. I believe in going to where the people are. I don't believe in allowing the people to just come to you. And the last point, and I think I made this before. Now I see the officer in the back, he ain't trying to look intimidating, but he's looking intimidating. He ain't trying to, I know he's not trying to. But his posture is different. His body language is a little different. I'm being honest with you, brother. I don't know who you are, you may be a wonderful person. But this is the problem. The problem is there are some people who are traumatized by the presence of police, traumatized, triggered by the presence of police. And anytime you could have, volunteers to help keep decorum and keep the peace good. But at the end of the day, and I'm done, but I just wanted y'all to hear my heart, and I'm not gonna be shut, I'm not going to be cut off, but you shouldn't have put a preacher on the van. That was your fault. That was your fault. I'm not gonna be cut off, because what I believe, what I'm fighting for, why I came, is for the people. Is for the people. And I just want to make that abundantly clear. No one, no individual politician, no individual leader, no one influences what I say and believe except the people. So if you see me nodding, I don't know if that's a Brown Act violation. I almost said amen, but that young lady was singing with that beautiful voice. Let's get this right for the city of Los Angeles. Let's make sure that the recommendation that we put forward solidly support the progress of the least of these. We need to stop allowing elected officials to be elected on the basis of tough on crime because they're being funded by the police association. If policing needs more funding, then you do what everybody else that works the job do. You do your job. Yeah. The data suggests, like, again, it's not my data. Suggests that they are less than 2% effective in solving crime. 50% of all violent crimes never get reported because people don't have confidence in that. Of the 50%, only 11% end up with a conviction. Listen to these numbers. And with Black defendants, 97% of Black defendants never get their day in court. They take a plea because they have to, because the color of their skin, well, they'll say, you get 5 years of 25. And even the lawyers will say, I know you don't deserve it, but you need to take it. Because when you go to court, which is what critical race theory is about, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And your skin, this is Black and brown people, means that you don't have the capacity to tell the truth. In court. Now you cannot, there's a bunch of lawyers in here. It's prima facie evidence. Too many lawyers in here. It's prima facie evidence. I like you. It's prima facie evidence of bad character. That is in fact. And if you look at what happened with Trayvon Martin, you see it clearly because he's on the phone with his best friend. And he was telling her what was going on. He was yelling for help. She got on the stand and told us she was the closest to an eyewitness there was. They didn't believe her. And they let that man walk. And then he turned around and sold that gun for $250,000. This is where we are, young. And Donald Trump ain't the only racist in office. He's not the only one. The foundation of this country is white supremacy. And white supremacy takes no prisoners. And we have to deal with this in real time. We have to deal with this. We have to be serious about it, and we can't do it without people. We can't do it without people. And so, I may have said too much, but I said everything that I wanted to say, so thank you.
I have Commissioner Field and this is Flanagan, Commissioner Field.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, sir, for sharing. Thank you so much. Speaking to the motion on the floor, I too want to say, as I heard some public comment, I had not seen the wording of the motion. I heard a little bit about the intention. And it's my understanding that the motion in effect reduces the authority of the commission chair regarding committee assignments and the chairpersons of those committees. And I wish when we had voted on our bylaws, I wish I and perhaps all of us had spent a little more time thinking about the implications of giving our commission chair total control of committee assignments and so on. And I'm with due respect, Reverend Thomas, I don't think we have time to redo. I understand there are people who are not as happy with their committee assignments, and I feel like it may not be necessary to amend our bylaws if our commission chair is open to a little bit more dialogue about who wants to be on which committee. I know I told the commission chair, just put me where you need me, so on a committee, no problem. But I realize that there's that much stronger feelings about which committee is best for their skills and interests. I'm going to admit, although again, with respect to Commissioner Gaps, the motion as written and also some comments made about who's appointed by whom. I'm just gonna say I was appointed so long ago, I can never remember. But it was Councilmember Cory, when he was president of the city council. And I do want to say, and I'm not creating the assumption that this is true of all of us who were appointed by a council member or the mayor. I was given no marching orders, no instructions. I was basically told, here's the schedule, which of course that didn't work out so well in terms of when we actually got started as a commission. And you know, I guess I'm not as concerned about which appointees are on which committees. So I'd like to hear other perspectives. At this point, I'm not sure we need to amend bylaws, or maybe we just need some kind of agreement that there can be a second round of requests for committee assignments and see if we need some changes in who sits on which. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I think that the public has made clear time and time again, we are not moving fast enough. That every meeting, they say, we are not moving fast. And today we have a bylaw commission that's asking us to deliberately self-select to move slower in the name of transparency. But transparency when we did not get bylaw text before this meeting. We're talking about transparency when not even the commissioners, let alone the public, knew what we were talking about until it's that. It's incredibly inappropriate for this to be introduced when our bylaws were accepted unanimously. I don't think they were in a place right now where we should amend the bylaws because of the process, let alone the substantive amendment in question. It's completely inappropriate. I think there are ways to change committee structure, but I'm trying to go on structure committee. Our first meeting is next Thursday. Everybody's talking about speed, and I respect that, and I listen to that, and now we are moving quickly. We have almost meetings every other weekend, and sometimes we go 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Our calendar is online and it is transparent. Sure, there are things that can be changed and done differently, but we are ready to go, and any pause that we have to the system will incredibly and increasingly delay my committee, and this is the committee that's looking at changing city attorneys. The committee is looking at, changing the size of the council. It's incredibly important information, and if we delay this, maybe we won't be able to fit in as many presentations. Maybe we won't be able to get, people on both sides. Maybe we won't be able to get as many people who are seen because they're taking time out of their day, out of their busy schedules to speak for us and give their testimony. So I think we need to keep going, and I think that even entertaining this bylaw amendment wasting more time. And I'm here on sit through this meeting, obviously, but I think we need to keep going forward. I know that I don't mind about it moving forward, but my committee is 3 at-large citizens and residents of LA that were selected by the commissioner, so I don't think that the arguments about, appointment authority apply to every committee, so we should remember that too. I rest my mind.
Commissioner Schlatter.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. I think you put the urgency question well, so I won't dwell on that, but I agree with it. I also have a concern about this motion, and one of the reasons that I opposed it is that we are intentionally here to familiarize ourselves with a broad set of topics and to treat the opportunity of charter reform holistically, and to bring our experience and our interests and our principles to the table, but to be open-minded about what the potential changes are, their impacts, and their potential benefits. So to me, the idea that we are only going to be selecting what we think we're interested in and what we think our fellow commissioners may have expertise in limits us unnecessarily. And I appreciate the spirit of the motion in an attempt to ensure that folks are as productive and enthusiastic and available as possible.
But I think we can work through the chair's authority to refine, as we spoke about in the last commission meeting, to refine the interpretation of what's covered in a particular committee, for the committee chairs to work on what gets agendized there, for those overlapping topics to be openly discussed and compared and deliberated together. And ultimately, all of this comes back to a full body deliberating. So in that model, we shouldn't all retreat to the corners we're starting from. And so I oppose this motion with the hope that we are all here intentionally desiring to learn and keeping our minds open and bringing our passions and our experience to the table, where we're still going to be able to share that with the body as a whole. So thank you.
Are there any commissioners who have not spoken yet that would like to speak on the motion? Commissioner Stein.
Well, I'm gonna start with, I'm very happy with my committee assignment. But that might just be by coincidence that came the committee assignment rather than, intended that way. But I do think Michael brings up a couple of good points. I mean, I think the fact that one elected official has the ability to appoint 4 members to this committee of allegedly 13, but seems to be 12. That it would make some sense to have one mayoral appointment on each of those. Even if it meant expanding that to 5, providing that members wanted to be on that. I mean, I know the difficult time that the chair had in doing it. But what I get a little tired of, to be candid, is, well, we need, it'll slow it down, and this is not intended towards my friend, Mr. Andreas there. But I'd rather get it right than get it done speedily. And going back to a discussion that we probably had at the first or probably second or third, when some of us were unhappy with the selection of city fabric, the story was, well, hired them, and if we have to start over, go back to the list, it'll slow things down. And in reality, it wouldn't have made a difference in the world, because I think city fabric, not all fall city fabric, but walking its way through the city's laborious administrative practices. Probably started working a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So in that particular case, I think we could have tried to do it right rather than do it expeditiously. It's the same things here. I mean, we can't we put this up and vote on it at the next meeting? I doubt that it's going to make any difference to the timeline. I know Commissioner Andrade has done an excellent job of having his committee ready, having 5 meetings scheduled, and I take my hat off to him. I don't know where he even finds the time to be able to do all of that. But for the most part, the other committees are really in transition at this point. And I believe, even though I wasn't there last week, I did listen to the entire commission meeting. And you Mr. Chair, you suggested, well, that you were going to get together with the vice chair and the second vice chair, and within 2 weeks or so, you would be able to report back of how these subcommittees were really going to work. I think within that timeline, we could do what Commissioner Yap is asking and get people on committees where they're going to be more excited. Like I say, I don't have a complaint in the world for what my assignment is. But I know that some of my fellow commissioners do have complaints. And I think the best way to get everybody energized is to hopefully get them on committees that they feel passionate about. We all know that at the end, committees are going to lead us to a recommendation, but it's all, I always want to say 13, but it's all 12 of us that are going to make the final approval or disapproval of those recommendations. Well, let's get some passion into it. Let's get people where they want to be. And under that set of circumstances, look, I'm so ignorant, I don't even know what this means when you. But I don't think the delay is significant, but I think the upside has a much larger role of energizing the commission that frankly, the outside world, to the people I talk with, and maybe I just talk to the wrong people, don't have a lot of faith in what we're gonna do. Right. And even what we're gonna do, they don't have a lot of faith that what we pass, council's not gonna just in many ways reverse some of those issues, because that's the way the ordinance is written, that they have the right to review everything. Even you, Mr. McCusker. So I would support Michael's motion and have this all put together at the next meeting and hopefully get at least from his eye view, a re-energized commission that we can put together those recommendations that we feel passionately about, and that hopefully the council will agree with, and hopefully the voters will agree. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Lewis, I will do one round of every commissioner, and then I have Commissioner Thomas and the other key Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I will try to be succinct. For me, this process it needs to be rooted in community. The community's voice needs to be involved in generating public trust, being transparent. I made that clear when I was asked about joining this commission. For me, those values are, I live by those. So let me put that out there. There's a fine line here that I think we all are aware of in terms of being expedient and getting it done right. Not perfect, so I want to make that clear. This is not going to be perfect. But to get it as right as we can is our charge. In terms of the committee composition, the one thing that stands out most to me that we need to be mindful of is making sure that the committees are not disproportionately represented by any, whether it's the mayor or whoever else on any single committee. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Conversely, I'm kind of like Commissioner Field, I think, said, so I'm gonna watch those jobs. So I use a lot of sports analogies. I may have passion about running the point. I see my guy over here, he has, I think Anthony Davis on his shirt over there, so I assume he's a Lakers guy, so this is the president and vote. Many years ago, some of you may not recall when Magic Johnson came to the league, but when he came to the league, Norm Nixon was the starting point guard for the Lakers. And at some point, the decision was made that Norm had to step aside for Magic to run the point. Norm wasn't too pleased about that. He eventually got shipped to the Clippers. It's another conversation. I bring that up to say, although I may be passionate about serving on certain commissions, I want and need to be a team player, put my own interests aside for the sake of this process, for the sake of the people. So I'm willing to do what I need to do in serving on any respective commission. But what I will bring to any commission I serve on is it's those values I talked about. Does this reflect the incentive? Is this something that engenders trust? Is it something that will be transparent? I bring that, we can all do that for any commission room. I'm not as eloquent as Commissioner Thomas, but I too, I'll be transparent, I too see this work from the perspective of a Black man, an African American man who grew up in Watts in the 80s. For any of you who know anything about South LA Watts in the 80s, you can probably imagine what I've seen and what I've experienced. I certainly think about how this process is going to impact those who have been marginalized
traditionally, those who continue to be marginalized and those who, regardless of this process, unfortunately, will probably continue to be marginalized. But if we can mitigate harm as much as we can through this process, that is that's what I feel personally passionate about. So having said all of that, I know that we need to get this right, as Commissioner Stein has said, I agree with that 100%. What I also don't want to do is drag it out to the point where we risk the entire process, however that might look. I don't know what that looks like, but just drag it out too much to the point where, it's what paralysis analysis. So where we're just doing so much that we don't get much done at all. We have to get moving, we know that. So to the motion, I think there's certainly merit to it. If we can somehow revisit it, as Commissioner Stein said, and maybe make some tweaks over the next week or so without compromising our timeline, that works too. So I'm kind of neutral on it, but ultimately, wherever I've been, I'm gonna do my best to be a team player. I'll ignore this and step aside, put my passion aside for running the point if needed. So that's it.
Okay, I'm Commissioner Thomas and the applicant, Commissioner Thomas, you can take as much time as you'd like, I would like you to know that.
And now I'm gonna be short.
I would like you to know that you were at the 20-minute mark in the last round.
Look, and see, he just did it. But anyway, I'm kidding. When you try to restrict me, I'll tell you one time. I think, Commissioner Gross, I think you said it very well. And Commissioner Yak, I appreciate your courage. We have an opportunity to present a vision. The charter is a vision of what the city is supposed to be. And if we get this right in presenting this vision could help determine who runs for office. This vision could help determine who works for the city, who comes from the city, the amount of participation that residents in the city. This is the vision. That's what the charter is. It's not, and I gotta say, I think Commissioner Lewis said it very well. You can't rush a baby being born. You can try. That baby is coming when that baby is ready to come. And so I think we need to understand that some things are perception. I'm happy with mine, by the way. I am elated over the moon with my point. So it's not about that. It's not about that at all. It's about the optics. There are people in this city who have an angst against certain folks, certain elected officials. We don't need that. We don't need that. And so scripture talks about being above reproach. We need to be above reproach. And having a committee. And again, I don't know who's the mayoral appointee out, and I just know that if you have 4 or 5 people appointed by one person, it's gonna be a committee where there are 2 people making up the majority, because committees are only 3. I don't know who they are, so it's not anything personal to anybody. And those, and again, I'm not suggesting that anybody is a puppet for anyone. But I am a professor. And all of my students, whether I say anything to them or not, want to please me. So you don't have to say anything. It's kind of embedded.
It's kind of embedded, and so, and again. I think. That we don't need to be asking questions. About why an elected official has the majority on a particular. Committee. We don't need that question, when we could very easily decide right now. Let's put the mayor's people on each committee so that they can report adequately back to the mayor should they want to do that. It's just the same thing if you were representing a city council person. There was a reason that the city council doesn't get to appoint the same number of people as the mayor. There was a reason for that. I don't know if it's justifiable, but there is one, there is the chance that it looks a particular way. And what we do not want the residents of Los Angeles rising up because they thought that we would be presenting to them a vision of what LA can be. And all we've done was warmed over what was already.
Yeah.
And so, and so I think that the people on this commission have the capacity to present a vision of the city. I believe that. But if we do politics as usual, we're going to have the same thing that we have always had. I have asked the question before. Corruption is in every document that we have seen, but no one has said, how does corruption start? What does corruption look like? How are elected officials enticed? I mean, the reality is that these are human beings, they're human beings too. And they can be enticed and influenced. And so the reality is that if we could bar them from that influence, like you don't unilaterally make a decision whether or not a developer is going to be able to build in Los Angeles. Or the budget or the police budget is not contingent upon elected officials. For example, if the police budgets never exceed poverty reduction programs. Because poverty, if you want to stop crime, stop poverty. And so the police should never get more money than the programs that help the most vulnerable people in the city. And so with that, that was 30 minutes, but that was longer because you made that comment, you did that show. But anyway, so again, I thank you, Commissioner Yak, because I would say that this was the most community-centered conversation that we've had on this commission since I've been on this commission. That this was the most community-centered conversation that we've had since I've been on this commission. And this was a substantive conversation, I believe that, and with a lot of participation. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
We only have one more speaker in the queue, Commissioner Yap, and then, the other commissioner speaks, I'm ready to call the vote, Commissioner Yap.
Thank you. I would like to address some of the feedback from my fellow commissioners, which I very much appreciate. I think that first, I know that the intent of this about getting it right. And it is, because that was the goal, the inclusion of voices at the committee level. That was, especially at the government structure committee, which is the committee that Commissioner Andrade is on. That committee will be covering the things that we hear about in these sessions every day, every time. Right choice of the corruption at city council, the powers of city council, the powers of the mayor, the powers of the very advisors of the mayor. And that committee does not have an African American or Black voice at that committee. That committee does not have age diversity in that committee. So if that's going to be a committee that addresses the very things that we hear in every commission, I would want to have those voices there. I also would want the voices that would be diverse in terms of experience and also age. In other committees that don't have them today, because much of our, critical younger members of this commission are in that one commission. So they're not in planning, they're not in better government. I want to hear those voices in those committees. But I know that appointments or insistent isn't really the route to do that. I would much prefer my fellow commissioners to make those choices, and then we can have an open dialogue about it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the communities end up exactly the same, and that would be fine. But I would say that having that open conversation to point out some of the things that maybe were not thought of at the time of the appointments. So it is about inclusion of voices at every level, so that we can have at the committee level, the thing that I think we value as this commission on, which is a wide range of our fellow Los Angeles residents weighing in on remaking our state. Another point, speed. I went through this what I knew would be an unpopular to some proposal with our city attorney. So we could have careful language which will allow us to, at the next meeting, remake the committees. The next meeting. We could do this with what I propose in a very transparent, open conversational way. To the point of getting it right, I think that's a good trade. Because otherwise, we're going to have some of these committees with some of the challenges that I've pointed out. Going to be raising those much later in the conversation. When the committees have done the work of gatekeeping and changing what we're looking at. And then the commission will be forced to say, then, oh, it's late now and the committees have done this work. Can't you see the time taking just to prove what these committees have already spent months looking at? So we have to get it right in that way, and the speed at which we can appoint people next, at the next meeting, will be very quick. I think that Commissioner Field, you mentioned why we have a conversation about it instead. That was attempted, and it was made very clear that that was not going to occur. Absent an amendment to the bylaws, which is how we are here. So I think that in terms of speed and conversation as well, we can do what we're trying to accomplish, which is transparency for the public and for even ourselves. I don't know how they were chosen. So I can't have a conversation about each of the merits or whatnot. You know, Mr. Slider, I think that you mentioned, well, we should all bring our own, we should recognize the passions that we have, we should contribute in the way that we do. I certainly appreciate the view of Commissioner Lewis as well on this. I think that we all have this intention. But I believe that having this open conversation allows us not to skip a step or have a leap of faith or an assumption that something was done that could be done a little bit better. But as Commissioner Lewis pointed out, not perfect or not looking. Last thing I would mention is one related to that the fact that some people have been appointed will not make up a majority of the committee. And I'm not saying that that there would be some type of I'm not suggesting that the commissioners that are here that would say that have that intent. I think it's about the transparency and the as Commissioner Johnson said, the optics of that. Also, as I think we would understand with respect to ethics, the person to whom that applies isn't the person who's able to weigh that. You know, I mean, it's good to know that there is that intent. But the fact that there are multiple appointees, there's just an optics component that is what they are. So I will I'll stay there with what I, think are some compelling reasons for us to try, I should say, adopt this motion and move toward a method that would bring confidence and faith to the public about something that's open, and frankly, more confidence and faith to myself as a commissioner of this commission.
Mr. Chair, may I ask one question, fellow commissioner?
Yes.
Would you include in your motion that we all this take place in the next commission meeting, so it's not open-handed when we have the process?
So the motion would be that we would, and I believe our next meeting, if we could make the September 29th meeting, a meeting of the commission, we could have.
That's not possible.
No.
That's not a meeting, that's a virtual town hall.
Is there a way that we can have a meeting before that took time? So we could set another meeting with this, right? Because we want to move with speed.
Let's do this. If we Commissioner Gavin, if your motion prevails, the cart for the horse, if your motion prevails, we can visit whether or not we can schedule a meeting that would be closer, a full commission meeting. That would be sooner than the next one that is scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
All right, I think I will just say a few words on this, obviously as the chair and as commissioner to be able to identify what this part of what this motion entails. I will say that the feedback is really important and I appreciate it. And I think many commissioners know that their ideology is to be very eye to eye with them. But nonetheless, I appreciate all the feedback. I will also say that this is clearly, and I think this should give the public a lot of confidence, not a rubber stamp commission. Not by any means whatsoever. And I think that you will see that our commissioners will make their opinions known. Will put their stances before the public so that you see where each and every one of us stand. Other chairs of other bodies would see that as an impediment. I see that as one of our biggest strengths. It is important, especially for the work of this commission, that you know where each and every one of us stand on the issues that are going to affect the city for at least the next remaining decade or probably longer. So with that understanding, I do want to reiterate what Commissioner Schreier said. Regardless of where the committee structure lands, whether it's the current structure or a different composition, all the recommendations from any committee come back to the full commission. And I have no doubt in my mind that this commission comprised of these individuals are not going to hold back. I have no doubt in my mind that if they see something happening at a committee, they will not release it. We also have a structure put into place that we do a check-in towards the end of this year, after we do our next round of committee meetings, where there are deliberations of the full commission, so that the commission can provide input to the committees. No, I don't agree with your recommendations, or yes, you're on the right track, or no, have you thought about this? Can you consider this? So that in our last phase, between January and February of 2026, March as well, we can refine, bring back actual charter language. That again, this commission will have the final vote on.
So to think that whatever the composition of these committees, like there's something that's gonna be half baked. Or done in some closed room. Will not be the case. This body would not allow it. And I think that is an amazing strength that we have. To say that we are going to, if we approve this motion, have a quick conversation. For all of us to figure out the committee assignments, I think. I think would be inaccurate. We have spent 40 minutes just discussing this item, which is not related to any charter recommendations. Again, purely process. Even after these bylaws and this process was approved by every single commissioner, even the commissioner who's proposing this amendment. And so now people want to take the time to get it right. Why wasn't this brought up when we were discussing the bylaws? Because, so. I wanna say this, and I committed to this. When I ran for chair. Which is, I'm open to feedback, I am thoughtful, I wanna set the right tone for this commission. And I think there were some things that were brought up in this discussion, which I want to look into. And come back and report back to the commission. I am still going to oppose this motion because I do not think it advances the work of this commission. But I appreciate the feedback. And so with that, I'm going to call a vote on the motion for us. However, just so we get clarity, I am going to ask Commissioner Yap to once again state his motion because it was pretty lengthy and none of us got it in writing.
Oh, I have a question actually, over that.
I'm sorry, so Commissioner Fuentes, then we'll do the vote.
So if this motion were to pass, the committee meeting that we already have set for next week,
Well, there's been an interest to schedule another commission meeting if this motion were to pass, but we could have that discussion contingent upon what happens with this vote. So the motion could be read, please.
Yes. So the motion is to amend the bylaws by replacing the second sentence in section 3A of the bylaws with the following. Members of each committee will be assigned among those commissioners volunteering for such committee. Each committee will be comprised of either 3 or 5 commissioners. Each committee chair will be selected by a majority vote of the members of that committee. If the number of volunteers for a committee is 3 or 5 commissioners, the committee will be comprised of such voluntary commissioners. If more than 5 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the commissioners receiving the top 5 most votes of the commission shall comprise such committee. If 4 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the commissioners receiving the top 3 most votes of the commission shall comprise such committee. If less than 3 commissioners volunteer for a committee, the subject area and purview of such committee shall be divided between the remaining committees as proposed by the chair and approved by a majority vote of the commission.
City Attorney.
Yes, and please, Commissioner, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's helpful to sort of summarize the moving parts of this motion. So, and to respond to Commissioner Fuentes' question, if this passes, I believe the effect would be that the existing composition of committees would be moved or void. And so Obviously, well, I appreciate what everybody has said here today, it's a balance, and I think that's been made clear by all of the conversations. It's not that speed needs to be the priority, but it is also something that, can't exactly be ignored. You are welcome to meet as often as you would like, provided there's the ability that includes staffing to do so. So, provided that you comply with the Brown Act and notice requirements, if this body needs to schedule a special meeting, to provide 24 hours in advance, then you can do so. It's obviously subject to your ability, your availability and the staff's availability as well. So with that, I'll get into the motion.
We'll just also note with the time frame included, you have a very limited window with next week. Meeting with, Shine Holiday of Washington.
Well, couldn't, yeah, that's true. But could
If we want to, if we're spending, yeah, that's fine.
but could it get for the month?
Sorry.
So say for example,
Just to repeat myself, in case you want on this, we have a tight schedule, things that actually Commissioner Stein, who originally flagged it for me, that we scheduled a meeting for next week during Rosh Hashanah is next week. So you're not having, we purposely are not having a meeting during those.
it would seem to me that if we have five.
Commissioner Thomas, we were in the middle of a.
No, but we were in the middle of both, but there was some discussion that was had before the vote was called. If the current bylaw says 3 to 5. Why couldn't people who want to be on a certain committee and they're not happy to do the committee that they're on, why couldn't they just get on that other committee and now they're on 2 committees?
So
It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't have to be one person, one commissioner on one committee. If somebody is really committed and wants to be a part of a committee, the current bylaw says up to 5. Even in situations where you have the 2 mayoral candidates that are, if you add another person, now it's equal. So so no one was accusing anybody of anything. So that's not what was happening. And so, but I will question that if it already says in the bylaws and people can't move, what is? Basically, no, what I'm saying is that if our bylaws say up to 5.
Sorry. Order everyone. The Commissioner Thomas, I just want to make sure we're done.
I think Justin was gonna ask.
There is no numerical number. The committee could theoretically be 13.
Well, then.
And look, everyone, there is everyone.
So are you then going to, so if it could be up to 13.
Commissioner Thomas, and city attorney. Okay, we are extremely close. We have reiterated the motion, which I wanted to do so that the public and the commissioners can be clear of the motion before us so that we can conduct the vote. City attorney, do you have any further clarification on the motion?
yes, to the extent it would be helpful to summarize the parts, because again, there are multiple paragraphs on there. As Commissioner Yanda said, they did consult with our office, so sometimes having a summary of that can be more helpful than just the actual language. So it would essentially be at the next available meeting, and there should be a motion to put that on an agenda. And we can sort out if there's time for a special earlier, that it would, people would have the opportunity to say, for example, Commissioner Thomas would like to be on committee number X, right, or committee letter X. And they would see if there was 5 people or 3 people on there, and if it was only 3 people or only 5 people, then that would be the group. And importantly, there would be no 4-member committees. So I believe the motion contemplates an odd number, it would be 3 or 5. This is not in the motion, but you can't have 13 members on a committee, because at that point, you're just the commission. So you can't have more than the majority, the Brown Act will cap you at a majority. So, and the majority counts against the 13, even though I recognize that it is a problem for now. But it considers 13. So you cannot have a committee that has 8 or more members, so just keep that, so 7 or more members, and use the calculator for council. So keep that in mind. If there is competition, because there's more than 5 people or there's 4 people, so it's 4 people or 6 or more that want to be on a single committee, then it would go based on votes. So it would be this body would vote and determine who wanted to be there based on the people who volunteered. So essentially, you would, if you volunteer to be on a committee, and it's either 4 members who want to be on a 3-member committee, or 6 or more that want to be on a 5-member committee, that it would. You would have to vote on that if there was any essentially ties, right, in terms of preference.
Sorry, City Attorney Commissioner Yagler, you would vote in at the top 3 and the top 5 will become members of that committee. You know, I appreciate the summary, and what I'm concerned about is that, I think that there is, I'm concerned that it's going to raise more questions, not that questions are bad, but that I think this concept is clear to our commission, but I
Yeah,
believe that is the case.
I'm not going to say, if there is a committee, whether it's not a black person on the committee, that's a problem. So I'm just saying, I'm making it very clear, if there is a committee where there is no black people on it, what you are communicating to me is that our voice doesn't matter. Because a lot of the black folks who are to present to this commission are going to be presenting at the committee level. I don't even like that, because other folks presented to this full commission. And so I just wanted to be clear, abundantly clear, that I will consider that you are not willing to hear the voices of black people, which presently are some of the most vulnerable people in our city. And if we can't, we could very easily solve this tonight by letting the people who are not pleased with being on the committee or who want to be on a particular committee, and I'm not saying I'm the black person that wants to be on the committee. We got 3 of them here. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we could tonight say, okay, who's displeased with their committee? Oh, who wants to be on another committee? Now, I think it should be. No, I'm saying in terms of we can have a discussion and then our chair could know. Because it may not even be that many people, you know, but because we don't wanna have this motion, we don't wanna go through all of this, right? So then, let's do this.
Commissioner Thomas, we're conducting the vote, so city attorney is, well, I think even the person who had the motion said your summary was fine. Is there anything else?
The last thing that important to understand is that, and it's the last paragraph, straight out, is that if there are less than 3 people who volunteer for a commission or a committee, then that committee would cease to exist. And so.
Okay. Well, thank you for the summary. We have the motion before us. I am going to call a roll call vote. Commissioner Andrades.
No.
Commissioner Field.
And before I vote no, I would urge fellow commissioners, if this doesn't pass.
Commissioner Field, you know where to vote.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Fuentes.
No.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Commissioner Knapp.
Yes.
Commissioner Nessa is a no. Commissioner Murray.
No.
Commissioner Sanchez.
No.
Commissioner Schleider.
No.
Commissioner Stein.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Yap.
Yes.
The motion does not pass. The vote is 7, no, 5, yes. Commissioners, thank you for the discussion. Okay, commissioners, city attorney.
Chair.
We
Chair Mason.
Yes, Commissioner.
I like this motion. Is it possible we can propose that no one commission is overly represented by any appointed or any single source for any of the appointees, so that we make sure there's some equitable representation across committees based on how they.
I would ask this from the commissioner. I can make that modification based on the current bylaws. It would upset some of the preferences that commissioners have stated of their commissions. But considering the feedback that I'm hearing, based on the discussion, I can make the modification.
If we can do it without a formal motion, I'm great.
I can do it without a formal
Well-
motion.
He's back to the chair. It's done.
Well,
So
no,
that,
but does that include the racial thing? That includes the racial.
everyone,
Yeah, does that include the racial thing? That's what
I want to be clear, that we had a discussion on the motion that was presented, where these items were considered. It would be out of order for us to continue with the discussion on a topic that we just voted on. So we are going to,
I'll withdraw that motion based on what you're.
thank you, Commissioner. So with that, we are going to adjourn the special meeting.
So keep in mind, we're in this special meeting, so if the motion has been withdrawn, Mr. Lewis. So if there are no more motions related to the bylaws, then yes, you can adjourn the special. You recess the regular already, so we'll go back into the regular. I do recommend that.
So may I make the motion?
Alright.
May I make the motion? Because I'm serious, you know, now.
So if the motion is related to the agenda, which is the bylaws.
Yeah.
Then you can make a motion related to a proposed change to the bylaws. But you'll need a second and it will require a majority vote.
My motion is that no committee excludes black people, a black person. That's my motion. Very simple, that no committee. Now, because, and again,
Is there a second?
is there a second?
I'll second, and then motion by second.
You can do whatever you want.
I will ask the city attorney, just because, and this is purely, like, I just want to make sure it's a lawful motion.
So you run into a numbers issue, right? Because I believe nobody is sitting on more than one committee at this point.
So there is one, but I think, look, I'm talking about, is it a lawful motion?
Marginalized communities, okay, I can expand, marginalized communities.
Well, that's our president.
No, it is a black person on certain committees. There is.
I'm the chair of.
Order, I'm sorry, and I understand there's, everyone, I understand, and I just wanna make sure we have a proper discussion. So there is a motion, is it lawful?
So I would be hesitant to put any sort of parameters on in the bylaws. Now, how the commission, what the commission or the committee makeup looks like is up to, at this point, up to the chair. But I believe we have received input from all of you, all of the commissioners.
It would be very easy it's a very easy problem to solve, just as you just solved the problem with mayor.
Is it, if I may, please go with members.
No, it's,
Let's say.
Everyone, I understand that. I'm just thinking.
I'm just-
There is a motion, second, Commissioner Thomas, please speak on your motion.
this does not look right. I didn't even mention that there were no black people, black person on a particular committee. I didn't mention that. Commissioner Yackley, he pointed that out. I have mentioned that there have been very few black voices who have presented to us, who have come here and made public comment. I have mentioned that. And so I also mentioned how this looks to me. And I don't understand if we can modify based upon the bylaws. I don't understand why that. If the argument was we cannot move the mayoral appointees across the different areas. If it was that we cannot do that, then I would understand. But what I cannot understand is how is that any different from having a black person Or, and maybe you get a black person and an older person. A seasoned, I'm sorry, a seasoned, I think that's very easy.
So there's only so much I can say on this in open session, but I will say I do have concerns about equal protection clause. I think you run into issues if you put quotas on any sort of protected class. The difference is when you're dealing with mayoral appointees, or not just mayoral appointees, because I believe the council president also had 2 appointees, that is not based on a protected class. So I would recommend against not putting this in the bylaws. How the makeup of the committees ends up was decided by the chair based on input and preferences by everybody around this, because it's not quite an issue, but around this things. So that is really the extent of what I can say on this issue.
So that's fine, so when I've been invited to go on the radio, and so what do I say? When they say, there's one community with no black person, what do I say? Do I tell the truth in terms of how I really feel? Because I'm gonna tell the truth in terms of how I feel.
City attorney.
Just saying,
I would like
to have this, the thing is that this is very easy, it's very solvable. You know, I'm not asking to be on another committee. I'm pleased with my committee. I'm just simply saying, if we think that it is appropriate to not have, I won't, you know, to not have an African American, to have a committee without an African American in Los Angeles, in the state of African Americans in this city, something is wrong. And I don't care who disagrees. Something is wrong. It's not okay. It doesn't mean that they won't do their job. But the African Americans on this commission, or at least me, I'll speak for me, the community is going to change. There's a committee with no black folk.
Commissioner Thomas, if I could jump to the queue, I want to say,
I'm done. Vote. I'm done. We don't have to have any more conversation. Vote. It's clear. Let's just vote and let's go. Cause
Commissioner Thomas, what I'm hearing is that the motion is in fact not lawful.
However,
However,
it's not lawful. If it's not lawful, give me some time and I'll make one.
Commissioner Thomas, please, if you could let me finish speaking, as I've been very courteous to you to allow you to speak. However, I have heard what you've been saying. What I would offer is the opportunity to try to address it within the current bylaws. I would like to note that there are currently 3 African American members of this commission. We do have 1 vacancy. There are 4 committees. In order for there to be an African American member on each committee, one under the current composition, 1 African American member of the commission would need to serve on 2 committees. That may require you or one of your colleagues to serve on 2 committees. And so I'm happy to have that discussion to try to figure this out.
That's all I need. I withdraw my motion. That's all I need. That's all I need.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn. Are there any other items under the special meeting that any commissioners would like to raise?
Since we're talking about Commissioner Actor, since we're talking about amendments to the bylaws, I have a motion to amend the bylaws. And that will be that the section 3A, the last sentence of section 3A, would read as members of each committee shall be appointed by the chair after giving consideration to diversity and of both diversity and experience of the commissioner. And the members of the committee will elect the chair of that committee.
Mr. City Attorney, this is not in order. We just had a motion on this exact sentence.
So not here to put my thumb on the scale in terms of policy decisions. I'm here to provide legal advice to the best of our ability on an open session, also give questions. as we discussed before, that are more appropriate outside of a public meeting, more than happy to meet with you individually or in round compliant groups. The body is welcome to or able to, under the existing description, to introduce an alternative motion. It does not appear to be identical to any motion that's been introduced so far. And I think the other, sort of the last part of your motion was also to allow the committees
to ask the committee chair, because in bylaws currently the chair is not to appoint the chair of the committee, the chair appoints the members.
I think the first sentence that you would mention, I have no doubt that Chair Mesa has taken this into consideration, so I don't know that it is necessary to put in the bylaws, but I'm not going to think again. But certainly the other point about the committees electing their own chairs, that is not currently in the bylaws.
So Commissioner Yaffer, again, city attorney, clarifying there's nothing that is against any sort of legal consideration on either part of that.
You said consideration to diversity and experience.
Yes, diversity and experience, and the chair will be selected by the members of the committee.
And I think that that's fine. The other thing that I'll reiterate, I don't need to repeat the chair, is that the chair correctly pointed out that whatever these committees do, it is going to come back to this entire body.
Let me ask, is there a second? I'll second. There is a second. Okay, I would like to be the key of this. We have now had 3 motions that were not noticed to the public, that were not noticed to the commissioners, that there was no opportunity to discuss so that we could potentially resolve some of these issues. Public comment is over. There'll be no public comment on this motion. I would ask commissioners to be more thoughtful about introducing motions. I would ask commissioners.
I won't respond.
I will also say this. I think what we have received on public comment as the chair to require more detailed information to be provided to the public and the commission is highlighted right here by what we are going through. People can speak on the motion. I already know what the votes are just by looking at people's facial expressions. But if commissioners want to take their colleagues to do that, that is your right. Commissioner Gallus, if it's your motion, you have the right to speak first.
Yes, Commissioner Yaffer, look, the reason for doing this was to include more voices at the level. I believe that if we were in a place where we would be able to either have this open dialogue, and if we were shared at this at the time that we passed the bylaws, that this would have been introduced. So if we're going to go about this in a way that has chairs that each of the committees that will be driving that agenda, much like the chair who drives the agenda here, I believe that that's an important point for us today. Part of the reason that this was not raised previously is because of the tight difficulty time, the consultation with the city attorney, and also the fact that this would be an unpopular motion for the chair. That's the reality of what it is.
Commissioner, is there any discussion on the motion? Yes. I have Commissioner Wheel. Can I ask you a question really quick? I would like the commissioners to speak. And then there is a motion on the floor, Commissioner Field is recognized, Commissioner.
Well, I'm a little concerned if our executive director has some pertinent information.
Just a small, there's nothing preventing committees from doing that at this point. So once you get into a committee, the chair has appointed chairs, much like any chair, any president of a board gets to do that, and then once you get into the body, the committee, if they want to spend time electing a chair, they can. Alright, yes, yes.
Commissioner Field has the floor. Commissioner Field.
Well, actually, that's kind of what I was gonna ask about, is whether without voting yes on this motion, can the committee get together with potentially some new members, volunteers who feel they can bring diversity and different experience and want to be on more than one committee. The committee gets together, there's a chair so far, and then one of the committee members can say, I'd like to be chair, or I nominate members. Can that be done under the current bylaws? I don't know if city attorney has chance.
Okay, so there's multiple moving parts to your question. As whether or not the committee can essentially re-elect or elect a different chair, it's not strictly prohibited within the bylaws. So again, it's not prohibited. Your mention of when people volunteer to be on other committees, the one thing that I will advise this body on this issue is that you open yourselves up to potential ground violations if people are serving on too many committees, because you will inevitably have conversations covering the subject matter. It becomes an issue. So I'm not saying that you are prohibited from having more people on the committees, but it is a very real issue, and we will help you triage depending on what you would like to do.
I'm as confused as ever.
Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Murray.
There are currently, like, I don't believe that, the document. But we had a discussion about people serving on more than one committee.
Commissioner Thomas, can I just remind you of the motion? This motion is to.
I know.
For the election of the chairs, that the commission.
I thought it was diversity.
That's not what the current motion is. The current motion is on the election of the, is on. The committee. Commissioner, yeah.
It's on the diversity of the experience for the members and also the election by the committee. Of the new chair. Of the committee chairs, I should say. Without a running sort of an interim appointment or direct appointment by the chair.
That's what I.
Commissioner.
That's what I thought. So. We had, I think we have been speaking arbitrarily, and now it's become almost like policy. Because we had a discussion around having to be on more than one. I submitted two suggestions simply because I really was interested in just the one that I did get. But I submitted another one simply because I thought I would try to be helpful, since it seemed as if we would need to serve on more than one committee. And so I think people are taking offense without cause. I think to say as chair, I can be the facial expressions on people that I know that this is not gonna pass. I don't think that was appropriate as chair. I just don't. I think there is and I think there is some personal stuff going on. I don't know what it is. It's personal to me because when I'm advocating, and you said that you're gonna solve this, and I can have a great deal of appreciation. We have to decide who we want to be. We have to decide whether or not we want to be flexible, inclusive, and open, or if we're not. And this is not a good look. It's just not a good look. And we are a diverse city. The fact that, and we are a diverse city. And for the Black people that are in this room, we know that allies don't come easy. They don't come easy. And so my allowing the motion to go forward has to do with a person, a person of color, too. Within the same community, having an issue. Having an issue with the composition of what, the way that we're doing what we're doing. Now, I don't know if my colleague would be interested in amending his motion in terms of who the chairs are. But I think that with all due respect, what is to keep a chair of committee from doing what we've seen here today? What is to keep, what would stop that? I think that there was some thought, maybe there should have been a conversation. I don't know if there was a conversation, that you and, Commissioner Yak had, Justin clearly knew where I was coming. Clearly. I would have, and if my phone, if Justin had broken my phone, I would have talked to her. So what I'm saying is we can't afford, as a diverse city, as our city is under attack by this president, to not be willing to make compromises that can potentially make us better. We can't be unwilling to do that. And I don't want to take a question from any community member, specifically a Black person. Why do you have committees? We are already less than 329 strong in this city. We already don't have this. Why are you participating in the process that limits our voice? And so I'm just gonna leave that there. But we gotta be different. We need to model what we wanna see in city government. And maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe we are. Because we did hear, and there's no dig on you, Mr. Chair, even though you dug on me. But we have heard people talk about the city council president. Because we heard the community, we say we're interested in the community. Let's not be guilty of doing the same thing. Let's create a structure where even he or she can't do that.
Commissioner Murray and Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Murray.
So when we all went through this process to be appointed to this commission, there were several mayoral positions. And I believe the city clerk, and I don't know whether he did his appointment as the president of the city council. I'm sorry, as a president of the city council. I don't know how Martin was appointed, but I think he's a terrific guy. And we spent deliberations in this room talking to you, including Commissioner Mack, and getting the resume of Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Yak. And we selected you to be on this committee. There's no hierarchy of who was appointed. Once you're appointed, you're appointed. There's nothing in any bylaws, and I don't think that was the intention of the city council when they created this commission to have a hierarchy. I had a conversation with Commissioner Field earlier. She said, did you have any discussion with the mayor? Did you have some marching orders? And I said, no, and she said the same thing. So I'm going to give the perception that we are, because we are the lackeys of the mayor, we're the lackeys of Brian, or even the appointed commissioners who were appointed by this body of the lackings of anybody here, so I don't know where that position came from. This is a numbers game, as Thomas, Commissioner, Thomas pointed out. We have 4 committees, so we have 3 African Americans, and we're all on committee. I'm the chair of one of the committees. I know it sounds like Commissioner Thomas wants to be on. We need somebody black on government structures, so I'm vigilant that would solve that problem. I'm just a little concerned about the discussion about who was appointed who. Furthermore, I've been involved, we all have, we're all communities people, we've all been involved in a lot of committees, a lot of different organizations. And in every organization, there is a chair or a president. And in every committee organization I've been involved in, the chair is the one who makes the committee decisions. So having this multi-structural thing, it just sounds like confusion. I am the chair of the committee. I have Commissioner Snyder and Commissioner Stein. And the next time we have a thing, you wanna hash it out and ask me or have a cookies, but yeah, that's something like that. I'm not accepting cookies out. Watch out, okay? So, I just wanted to say that and take down the temperature a little. I know tensions are running high. We do want diversity, we do want equity, we do want inclusion, and when we have our speakers, we have been asking them the tough questions. I respect every single person on this commission who come from a diversity backgrounds. I am a lawyer. I know people kind of scared of that. I am a lawyer, so sue me. I don't want to say how old I am, but I'm gonna be 61 on Monday, so I'm not.
We're child.
That's right, I'm on the cusp, thank you. So, and I'm a black woman, and so I bring that to the table. But we all bring something to the table, even our younger ones and our seasoned people. I think I'm kind of in the middle as far as age is concerned. We all bring something to the table, and I respect every single person on this commission, and we've all asked really tough questions. Some questions I haven't thought about. I have no problem asking anything or saying anything, that's not me. I never really hold back, but a lot of the commissioners, sometimes they ask questions that I would be thinking of, and sometimes they say things I would be thinking of. So I think we all just have to treat each other with respect, by support, Commissioner Mesa and the appointments that he's made. I don't think there was any wrongdoing or underhandedness. And I understand feelings may be hurt, people don't think the process is fair or transparent. And we have heard from you from the last several hours about that, and I think he may be making some changes, and I hope he's taking the feedback and we get moved forward.
Commissioner Sanchez.
I want to echo Vice Chair Murray's comments. I think when we talk about equity and diversity, we really put a lot of time, especially with the resumes that came in for the committee members. The staff worked very hard. We had over 700, 200, which were narrowed down to about 50 of those, of which we all had to take careful consideration, not only to gender, genre. I am 62, Melinda, so where you live, we were also very mindful as to the city and where you live. I'm in the Sacramento Valley. Commissioner Thomas, you and I are the only ones from the valley. That's very important to me. I grew up in Tijuana, having, faced discrimination as a Latina. I think you also, we unanimously chose Commissioner Chair Mesa. And I just don't want to undermine where he's gone. I know he's put a lot of thought into the diversity, into the work that we've all done. And I really appreciate the robust conversation that we had here, by the way. Gracias.
Are there any other commissioners in the queue? Commissioner Yap, would you like to conclude your remarks and restate the motion, please?
Yes, thank you. And, I wanted to, first of all, I want to echo Commissioner Murray's point that It's you bring down the temperature, tensions of things, you know, we have a lot to do, we have a long time together, and anyway, I think that. I also wanted to reiterate the goal here, the goal is not to say. And or to even imply that there was any wrongdoing or, I think Commissioner Ray said lacking, you know, I think it is the transparency that to which the departments, you know, maybe we're not yet made. But it is also the influence, even if it is public perception of the influence of the mayoral appointees. I mean, just an observational point is that the leadership of this commission, the chair, the vice chair, and the second vice chair are all mayoral appointees. Two of the appointees on the as chairs of the committees are mayoral appointees. There can be nothing wrong, there could be nothing at all, but we elected the chair, vice chair, and second chair. The elections of the committees for the chair of them, would just also maybe even end up with the same results. But that's really the intent of this. It's more about inclusion, good governance. It is not at all personal. Thank you.
Can you receive the motion, please?
Yes, sorry, that was the initial question. It would be to revise section 3A, the second sentence of section 3A. Members of each committee to read as members of each committee shall be appointed by the chair with consideration of diversity and experience as to each group member, and the committee members shall elect the chair of each of the respective committee.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion to strike the last sentence. Is there a second?
Second.
The reason, so the last sentence is on the election of the chairs. It's not necessary and redundant. We have already heard that committees, if we choose to, already have the right to have an election of chair. And so, you could take it as a friendly amendment, or we could have a vote on it. It is up to you, Commissioner Guy.
Commissioner Yagler, so this is the result of Justin, your point on the committees could take it upon themselves to elect the chair.
They do not have to, but they are not, there is nothing prohibiting them from doing it also. It just is, if they want to spend time on it.
So, okay.
It could happen on the first meeting, it could happen on the fifth meeting.
Or it could happen not at all because there's already a chair.
Somebody could make that first,
But
second, yeah.
yeah, so I think that the impact of this would then create a requirement for that committee to have this conversation with someone who would not want to offend the chair appointed by Chair Nita, but maybe will, you know, there's a chilling impact with it.
I mean. You can, I'm not gonna get us to say, so it's not really.
So there's an amendment on the motion to strike the second sentence. Is there discussion on the amendment? So the amendment is to clarify for, okay.
What's left?
What's, so it is hard because none of us have the written motion, so Commissioner. Yeah, can you please restate your motion again?
Section 3A, second sentence will be amended to read, members of each committee shall be appointed by the chair after consideration.
Entire motion, what's left. It's for the past, the entire motion.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. So section 3A of the bylaws will be, the second sentence of section 3A will be amended to read as follows. Members of each committee shall be appointed by the chair after consideration of the diversity and experience of each member. That's what it would be, without.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there a second to this motion?
Yes, Commissioner Fuentes, the amendment.
So.
The main motion was seconded by.
Just, if there's no discussion on this, the order of the vote would be
On the-
Yes.
Is there discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing no discussion on the amendment, I will reiterate what the amendment is doing. The amendment is striking the second sentence of the motion, which is to have the election of the chairs, because it is redundant. So we will take, so just for clarity, I am requesting that there be a yes on the amendment. Okay, Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Field,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuentes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis is no longer with us. Commissioner Matt,
Yes.
Chair Mesa, yes. Second Vice Chair Murray,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlager,
I prefer to reject the motion in its entirety, no.
Commissioner Stein. Yes. Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Yap.
No.
The motion passes. We are now back to the motion as amended. Can you please read the motion as amended, Commissioner Yap?
The bylaws, second sentence of section 3A will be revised to read, members of each committee shall be appointed by the chair after giving consideration to diversity and experience for each member of that committee.
I will also be requesting a no vote on this motion, as I have already taken those considerations into account in the current committee structure. Additionally, I have heard the feedback of the commissioners and will be revisiting the committee composition based on the feedback tonight. Is there any further discussion on the motion? I am requesting a no vote on this motion. I will conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Andrades. Commissioner Field,
No.
Commissioner Fuentes,
No.
Commissioner Lewis is absent, Commissioner Matt,
Yes.
Chair Mesa is no. Commissioner Murray,
No.
Commissioner Sanchez,
No.
Commissioner Schlager,
No.
Commissioner Stein,
Just to be different, yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Yap,
Yes.
the motion fails. Okay,
Bylaw Reform Commission.
are there any,
We are now.
are there any further motions on the special agenda?
Move adjournment of special meeting.
There is a motion to adjourn, which is not debatable. There is a second. Motion to adjourn is not debatable. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, so ordered. We are now back in our regular meeting agenda. There has been a request to have a 5-minute recess. Is there any objection? Okay, actually, you know what, everyone, we will come back at we will come back at 8:55. 8:55.
I hope everybody is ready to spend the next 2 hours talking about this staff report. You are here as Charter Reform Commissioners,
We are in recess.
remaking bylaws. Talking in circles, that doesn't do anything for anybody.
conduct a roll call. Give me 1 minute, everyone, sorry. Thank you, commissioners. I will conduct a roll call. Commissioner Andrés. Present. Commissioner Field.
Here.
Commissioner Fuentes. Commissioner Lewis is absent. Commissioner Back. Chair Mess as the president. Second, Vice Chair Murray.
President.
Vice Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Commissioner Schlatter. Sorry about the here. Commissioner Stein. Here. Commissioner Thomas. Present. Commissioner Yap. Here. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the executive director report on outreach and other matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to briefly, first, cut off Commissioner Field before she asked. There are 12 people right now. There were more earlier. There are less now.
Less now?
There are less now. I just wanted to know, I served, I served, on previous money, where council meetings would go, see the dwindling number of people that we do today. I just hope that this commission takes that into account for future, as we now just, a couple hours later, after the start of the meeting, get into the purpose of what this meeting was scheduled for. I think it's really important that, we've, to a certain extent, we've disenfranchised the public, tonight. That some of that is just the way these bodies work, absolutely. But I think there needs to be a balance, and I hope this commission, works to find that balance, because, if I'm gonna get, SHIT for the public on like tonight's participation, I think they're not. Tonight, we have some good public comment. We had this meeting at 6 p.m. because that's what the council asked us to do, to have some meetings at 6 p.m. We're gonna, some is a flexible term. I definitely believe some is more than one, whether or not it's 2 or 3. I don't think it's more than 3. It doesn't have to be more than 3. We just wanna give everyone that kind of expectation, but we will have at least 1 or 2 more of these 6 p.m. meetings. And we just need to be respectful of our community members who participate. I just wanna queue up again, we do have our committees coming up. We have a committee meeting on the 25th. So that's coming up fast. And we also have our first virtual town hall. Just more information will be coming to the commission and to the public, of course, on these virtual town halls infrastructure. City Fabric is proposing something much more creative than what I initially thought about, just like having people log in and give public comment. It's much more interactive. It's gonna be a better two-way experience. And because we're gonna have multiples of these, it's gonna allow commissioners to participate separately. So each one will have commissioners participate to the extent below a Brown Act meeting. And then the next meeting, different commissioners will participate to the extent below a Brown Act meeting, and then the next one, and then all commissioners will be able to view / listen to these virtual town halls. More information to come on what those look like, just wanted to kind of preview what that's gonna be looking like, here in the near, future. I'll just maybe, that's quick, that's all I have to say.
Before we take up the presentation this evening, could I ask the city attorney a couple of questions, because it's related to that, don't look at me, I'm not gonna do that. It's just simple,
Okay.
groundkeeping rules.
I've heard first the council go where there's public comments.
I didn't quite understand what Justin said, so I'm trying to figure out this virtual town hall. There are, for all practical purposes, 12 members of our commission. And all 12 of us, I'm assuming during this period of time, are gonna be able to remain at home and participate in the virtual town hall by Zoom. Is that correct?
Well, not all at the same time. That's the point of having multiples of these, you'll all be able to listen to them, and we're gonna work closely with the city attorney's office. We've already kind of outlined a couple of different models of this. So we're gonna make sure that we're not violating Brown Act in any way, shape, or form, but we're just trying to do more creative ways of soliciting community input in a process that's not as rigid as your 3 minutes are up. Next.
So during this virtual meeting, I'm assuming it's in the comply with the Brown Act, I'm assuming 6 of us can participate in that meeting. Let me go back. Do we need a quorum for that meeting or a quorum? Totally.
So this is not, so when I say meeting, I want to say meeting with a capital M, meaning like a meeting like this, a Brown Act meeting where we have a forum or more, and the body is here to discuss or take action on items within the jurisdiction. My understanding is that the town halls are not intended to be a meeting with a capital M. Obviously, globally, we all say meetings. So you have to stay underneath the majority of this body. And again, that's based on what their team recognized that you practically speaking as well. So only 6 members can actively participate at a time. That doesn't prevent the other members from watching or observing or tuning in like any other member of the public, right? But it wouldn't be active participants. So in terms of interacting with members of the public, that would be limited to 6 at a time. The only other thing that I would flag is that when the committees are, or based on the committee, you need to keep track of that as well. So.
So we'll have some complicated, we'll figure it out, we'll make sure that we work with the city attorneys.
So, but the 6 of us, let's just take the first one, just from 6 of us that are on it. Who do, we can ask questions of anybody else in the town hall, I mean, what are?
The structure is, I'll lay it out, I don't have the full structure in front of me right now. I'll present it to you.
You can lay it.
We'll present, I just don't, so I think some of your details into the weeds will be answered once, hopefully, once, you know, we have the whole structure to send to you. I'm cognizant that it's 9:04 and we still have got the substance of what we're here for tonight, so happy to answer these questions, after we get, to the entire commission, what this is gonna look like.
My next question to the city attorney though is, I guess it's because it's a town hall, because I was wondering why we couldn't do a Zoom meeting of tonight.
So, and that's the difference between the capital M meeting, which is the day, right? As we discussed earlier, as I mentioned earlier, both in the Brown Act Criminal Law 1, which I recognize only have the very, very basic elements of the Brown Act. It is incredibly difficult to have virtual meetings where everybody participates. Obviously, you went through the virtual hoops for a single member participating virtually with Commissioner Slaughter. That is different. But the important part in not having a majority or a quorum of this body in the town hall is that it is not a Brown Act. So that's why you can have it done virtually, and as opposed to this, which is a Brown Act meeting because we have a quorum present.
One last question, because it's getting late, I'm sure all of us want to go home. Let's just say we didn't have Commissioner Yap's motion today, which I'm glad that we did. But we didn't have Commissioner Yap's motion today, and the only thing we have is a presentation of staff on this issue of, for lack of a better word, public corruption. Why couldn't that meeting be totally virtual because of the fact that at the end of staff's report tonight, we may ask questions of staff, but we're not gonna vote on anything, you know, it's not like tonight we're gonna make a decision as to how we're gonna deal with the issue brought before us.
So the litmus test on whether or not it's a Brown Act meeting is not dependent on whether or not the body takes action that day. So it is, if the majority of the body needs to hear, discuss, or take action on an item within their jurisdiction. So that would be simply here then, even if it was just presentations, if it's within your jurisdiction, which has been discussed, is quite broad, part of the forum, and you have a majority that are gathered in the same place, that it is the Brown Act.
Thank you.
Commissioner Field.
Thanks, and I understand the details are to be announced. I will respectfully request the September 29th is around the corner, that whoever it is, our chair with our ED, please define, using all these great criteria about our age, our diversity and all that stuff, decide which 6 of us are supposed to show up, so the rest of us know we don't have to keep it on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? All right, thank you, Executive Director, for the report. We now move on to item number 1 of the regular meeting, which is discussion relative to potential better government related charter amendments, including but not limited to issues related to the removal and discipline of elected officials, elections, ethics, anti-corruption matters, filling vacancies in office, neighborhood council, and possible action regarding related report back requests and related matters. I will hand it to our Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, I'm gonna hand it to our resident Occidental College graduate. Kate is gonna be presenting the staff report on this very important topic tonight. And we look forward to the discussion on it.
I'm not a student, I graduated.
Sorry, I said student, I meant graduate.
Yes, I'm gonna ask you to speak into the mic, please.
Yes, good evening, commissioners, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
My name is Kate Reinhardt, I'm one of the policy deputies for the Charter Reform Commission. Tonight I'm gonna be going over some of the reforms presented in our staff report. These recommendations were gathered from presentations on September 6th and the 2023 Central City Association report on Los Angeles city governance reform. Our staff report synthesizes information heard from this presentation and provides a menu of proposed recommendations for the commission to further consider. The better government topic is divided into 3 main subcategories. One is the removal and discipline of elected officials, anti-corruption measures and ethics, and neighborhood councils. Under the topic of the removal and discipline of elected officials, this is an issue that follows a long string of corruption within City Hall that's led to many instances of removals and vacancies within city council offices. The city has faced challenges with removing elected officials accused of misconduct and filling these vacancies due to a lack of specific language within the charter. Article 2, officers of the city within the city charter includes many relevant city charter sections, including section 211, suspension pending trial, and section 207, vacancy in city offices. Within the event of a vacancy in an elected office, the city charter does not lay out a specific time to process or filling the vacancy, whether that vacancy is temporary or permanent. Currently, the council is allowed to appoint a caretaker in the event of a vacancy. However, caretakers are not allowed to vote for a council district, which leaves many instances where council districts have been left without a voting representative for extended periods of time. In other cases, when there's been a vacancy, members have been appointed without constituents being able to weigh in on the representative. Some proposed areas to look at further from September sixth include providing clear language for a suspension of a council member who's pending trial. This would be relevant to section 211. Another recommendation is clarifying section 207C, vacancy requirements, adding explicit power of the full council to script committee assignments rather than leaving this up to the council president. Another area to consider is defining a vacancy versus a temporary vacancy within section 207 and considering allowing the vote of the full city council to remove an elected official. Further recommendations include clarifying compensation requirements for elected officials who are under suspension. Our second area is related to ethics and anti-corruption measures. We've heard from the Ethics Commission, who is currently taking public comment, to provide further recommendations for our commission to consider. We expect to get those recommendations sometime within the next few months, so we'll be following up with further recommendations from the Ethics Commission. Their main recommendation that they presented on Saturday, September 6th, was removing Charter Section 803, election of LAUSD board members, and adding this to municipal code. So we will continue to further hear recommendations relating to this matter. Finally, we heard from the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment regarding updates to Article 9, relating to neighborhood councils and the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. The department walked us through recommendations on all relevant sections of Article 9 to improve inclusivity, clarity, and the structure of neighborhood councils and the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. We will hear the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners recommendations in early 2026. And we're continuing to receive community impact statements from neighborhood councils that are further addressing Article 9. The Better Government Committee will hear more presentations from additional groups on November 8th to further explore any of these proposed recommendations. But our staff report today is not a full, exhaustive, final list of recommendations. It's more of a starting point for commissioners to give feedback on what they'd like to continue to look at and propose additional areas to explore. So with that, I will take any questions, and thank you for letting me present.
Thank you so much, Kate. Really appreciate the hard work that you and the rest of the team put into this, and also want to just thank, of course, the community members. And really, this took input from, this is us doing the homework of putting together a lot of public comment from our presenters, and putting it into something that is digestible, I hope, for our commissioners and for the public in this forum, and we look forward to the discussion. And hearing, in particular, I just want to say, and hearing really for this discussion, more direction, especially for the committee members in this room, for this committee, to hear that.
Commissioner Fields, Stein, Morales, and Q, Commissioner Fields.
And thanks for putting it all together. One comment and one question. Since we're going to hear from the neighborhood council group, the bottom, I can't keep all the acronyms straight. I think you said early in the new year. I would hope tonight we don't spend too much time, even though I have a lot of suggestions about neighborhood council charter reform, but I hope not tonight because we haven't really heard from everyone yet. I just wanted to clarify, I can't quite figure out, and you were just talking about, trying to identify for you. Item B, I think it's on the last page. Who did you say said to take out the whole LA Unified election stuff?
That was a recommendation from the Ethics Commission.
It was, okay, I just didn't remember. Okay, I was just curious about, we requested staff gonna consult with the LA Unified School Board to see if they have any thoughts on that topic.
I don't think we've received input on that, but that's something that we'll be following up with, both the Ethics Commission and the school district.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it impacts a whole nother separate public agency, they may not even know we're talking about it, so someone has to reach out to their board president or superintendent. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bill, just on that, I bumped into the superintendent at an event over the past weekend. And we're gonna be setting up a meeting with his staff, and also we should do the same with the school board, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stein.
Well, this particular part that will go to the Sanchez committee, of which I'm not on and not looking to join. Basically, really brings back some very, very bad memories of my part. I was an airport commissioner. And because of a political accusation regarding pay to play, I don't need to go through all of that. I resigned, not to bring embarrassment to the mayor at that time, Mayor Hunt. But the part that all of this reform, what we're talking about, bothers me is what happens if the person accused, I was lucky, I was never indicted, should have been, I was never a target of anything. But at the end of the day, in order to defend myself, I had to spend over $200,000 in legal fees, thank the city of Los Angeles for repaying almost all of those to me. And my family and I went through absolute hell for something that I didn't do. And I still, even though I was a deputy DA and believed in the presumption of innocence then, you know, I was pretty aggressive deputy DA. What happens to a person like me under these rules if I happen to have been an elected official? Am I suspended without pay? Again, it didn't matter at the commission, I wasn't being paid anything. But if my family needed me to help support them, and I'm suspended without pay for something I didn't do, where's the fairness in that? Where's the fairness in, you know, part of the discussion is, well, a member can be expelled and we'll hold either a special election or it's within a different time period, we'll do an appointment. But what happens, like in my case, assuming I were an elected official, where eventually I received clearance letters from the United States Attorney, from the District Attorney of Los Angeles, and from the City Ethics Commission that there was no there there. And they replaced me as a council member or general manager. Well, do I get my job back? Even though they expelled me from the council, and elected somebody else, but now I've been cleared. And so therefore, do I get my job back? Do I get to be a council member again? Will people elected me to? And if we do hold special elections, what's the cost of those special elections? There's just so many moving parts to it. So, I mean, I know it's difficult. I mean, the thing with Mr. Fuentes, when he was a councilman, when he resigned to take a job in the private sector, that's easy. You know, he hadn't been accused of anything. He voluntarily left city employment. And obviously he isn't worried about supporting his family or anything such, because he has a job to take care of that. But what if he's run out of office? I mean, I was Indiana, so there's gotta be different rules for someone who voluntarily resigns and is no longer in the city, whether it be a general manager or whether it be a council member or whether it be one of the 3 citywide elected officials. How are we going to give them the presumption of innocence and at the same time keep the trust of the public? I mean, you know, I think generally the public believes most politicians are corrupt. And I'm not saying that I join in that plate, but I'm saying I think that's a generalization that if we went out and polled, people would necessarily say that. What do you do to their reputations? What do you do to the money that they need for their families? What do you do to constituent services, you suspend councilman or councilwoman X. Who's gonna handle their office? Who's gonna take all the complaints about rubbish not being picked up or on planning decisions that obviously become the most controversial of most things that council members do? How are we gonna handle that? And I don't know if that's just part of this discussion that we're gonna have and have in front of Mr. Sanchez's committee, or if it's something that you have some ideas on, or the executive director has some ideas on, that we could at least start that discussion tonight. Thank you.
I want to respond to that myself, but the Commissioner Stein, thank you for responding. Commissioner Andres.
I first actually want to start by echoing what Commissioner Stein said. I think that there's a balancing act here, because we have the overly restrictive removal and suspension requirements. It's possible that, you know, a bad actor in city council could jump on a false accusation to get someone they don't like ousted. So I urge the committee to think of that perspective when they get there. But I actually want to talk about attachment B that was sent over to us. I see in part A, removal of elected officers, it talks about suspension and removal of elected officials, and then it opted out of the process of filling vacancies. But there was a core segment that formerly talked about. They talked about adding explicit language requiring full council when skirting and storming the assignment. They talked about clarifying compensation requirements, putting people money away, so that it looks like you all recommended to the committee to talk about processes for removal and the processes for filling, but not what happens in the suspension phase and what happens in the removal phase. So I would just further clarify those, that it does actually go.
Yeah, I will say that a lot of those specifics were not included within attachment B, simply to clarify, not to clarify, but to provide more of an overview of the general topics to explore, and then the further, more specific scenarios as to what would happen, were some of which were outlined in attachment A within specific recommendations. I think actually can also switch to that.
I think one of the things we wanted to highlight in back.
You are for the record.
Sorry, my name is Max Dubsky, I'm the deputy director of the Charter and Farm Commission. I think one of the things we're trying to highlight in the background is, you know, we've unfortunately had a lot of situations where we've had a vacancy on the council and they've been handled differently. Some of the ways they've been handled are in the charter, and some of them are sort of customs that have developed over time. And so there's really a need to clarify a process in the charter about how this is handled. And just, you know, I guess some process moving forward with these initial staff reports, we're really trying to highlight recommendations that were proposed in the presentations and that we've received, you know, in other ways, such as through department letters or council motions. On this topic, we're going to continue to add to it because there are additional recommendations forthcoming. But then once we get into the committees, we're hoping to come back to you with options for each of these topics and sort of give you examples from other cities about how they handle this issue or potential charter amendments. So this is really just trying to give you an overview of some of the issues related to this.
No, that sounds good. I just made statements a little off, but this is a really comprehensive list that I'm very thorough.
Commissioner Sanchez, and then myself in the queue, any other commissioners want to jump in the queue at this point?
Thank you. I want to thank staff for preparing this report. And I know a lot of this information is based on what has been presented to us. And I think Max, you just answered one of my questions about looking to other cities, what's in their reform. Because while I understand that an indictment is a criminal conviction, many times how we handle those members, how we deal with the disciplinary action leaves those council districts absence of representation, which I think is highly unfair. It is unfortunate that we've had to deal with these serious situations in the city of Los Angeles, seeing it play out right in front of our eyes. And the process to remove those bad actors, I think that the committee, when we begin to take those meetings, will have robust conversations and deliberations In that committee, it's myself, Commissioner Yap, look forward to it, and Commissioner Lewis as well, so thank you.
I have myself and then Commissioner Thomas, I want to thank the staff for the report. My comment to Commissioner Stein's, questions, after some general feedback. One is because it's a public document and, you know, any members of the public can jump in at any point into our process. I do think it would be helpful that we put that there are pending recommendations from the Ethics Commission. There are pending recommendations from BOM. Just so it doesn't, because if you take this by itself and are not in the process like we are, it looks like we're missing pieces. But we're waiting for really important stakeholders and departments to put stuff forward. So I think that's an important reason of just why to note that in the document. I would, and I know the staff has done this, I know the staff has encouraged BOM to get us their presentation earlier, and I appreciate the staff doing this. So when members of BOM eventually see this recording, I'm also asking them to get us their recommendations earlier than January. I was appreciative of Dunn's presentation, but it was purely technical. It was purely technical and it didn't dive into the robust conversation of what the powers of the neighborhood council should be, which I know the committee's gonna explore, so I'm not gonna spend any more time on that. I do wanna say that I think on both attachment A and attachment B, there should be other things noted as far as a public advocate, which was proposed, and also an office of an inspector general, whether that be housed in or outside of the ethics commission. Because regardless of the ethics commission is gonna put that in their recommendations, it's still something that was noted that I think needs to go into the report. And it could be an attachment to be categorized as an umbrella of additional potential structures to address ethics and corruption. So you all can probably better word that than I did right here, but I want to give that feedback. I think, so to Commissioner Stein's point, I think that is extremely important. Look at what happened with Councilmember Mark Lee Thomas, who successfully sued the city because of lost wages, because there is also a charter prohibition on council members not having additional employment. It makes sense when you are a full-time council member getting the type of salary that they should not be having additional employment. But when we are cutting off someone's livelihood, and perhaps there is merit to that, but nonetheless they are not allowed to get outside of employment. I think that is something that needs to be considered. I do think that it is a tough balancing act that I look forward to the committee discussing of providing due process. There's many examples of there needs to be clarity on what due process looks like. So I appreciate the commissioner for raising that. I do think that this is one of the areas that the charter does need to be prescriptive, because we do need to imagine if this was a municipal code, for example, it'd be a complete disaster. They would rewrite the rules every time based on who it was, who they knew. And so I think we're just gonna have to navigate through all that. So I wanted to appreciate the commissioner for raising it. Those are my thoughts on that. Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, while I totally agree with the need to stomp out corruption, all corruption is not created. There's corruption that involves one individual, that impacts one individual. And then there is corruption that happens that impacts an entire neighborhoods. And I speak specifically to what happened, which brought about why we're here. The discussion, it was difficult. Well, they couldn't remove them. Bill Cedillo left. Kevin Nearly home. stayed until his term was up, he wasn't reelected, even though he's on video attacking someone. And their discussion was around disempowering entire segments of our community. And it seemed as if we are amped up over what, $30,000 with Martin Luther Thomas, a scholarship and whatever. You know, I don't know all of the details. But that involved USC, Martin Luther Thomas, and his son. 3 people primarily. What those other city council people did involves large segments of people and the most vulnerable people in the city. And so whenever I hear conversations about due process, and no one has said zero tolerance, right? No one has said that. But there was a way that we were thinking zero tolerance. And every time there is zero tolerance, it is the Black folks who has the brunt of it. If we look at the school suspensions as a comparison, it's the Black children that are disproportionately suspended. And so what we have to be careful of, as the numbers of Black people continue to shrink in the city, we have to be careful that whatever we do in terms of stomping out corruption, that they don't get swept up in that process and not get due process. Going back to what Stein said. So, luckily you had your lawyer, of course you had $20,000. But I wouldn't have $20,000 to defend myself for a volunteer commission. I think we have to be very careful with this. And I think the bottom line is that I don't think you ever go wrong when you have individual citizens making these sorts of decisions who will be most impacted. For example, what if there were a panel of people to talk about what happened with my district at Eric Martinez? The other point is, and even still the way this city is so polarized politically, maybe that would be the part. But I think what we have to really be careful about is doing what we do under the guise of due process, knowing that Black and brown people don't get due process. Not even in our courts. And so I don't know how we move. But I think it's worth mentioning that we need to clearly say that all corruption, not that we're justifying it, maybe people will say it. All corruption is not created equal. And I'll give one last example. I hope y'all get that. I'm pretty sure you'll get that. But I'll give one last example. The indictment of Donald Trump. 34 of them related to sexual assault and other things. The decision by the legislative body was to let the people decide. Have an election. Let the people decide. What was the message? The message that was sent was number one, this is just another byproduct of white privilege and male patriarchy and wealth. But more importantly, who in this room, if they were indicted of a crime, that people would actually make the argument, oh, they're running for office, so let the people decide. Now that's at the highest level of government. The highest level of government. And then another thing that I want to add to that is there is also something called restorative justice. How do you, after you have, because what people, what Black communities say, this is what we say, so we tell our elected officials, you thought you could do what white elected officials do, you should have known that. Because it's always, well, they're all doing it, they're all doing it. So our response is always, you can't do what they do. You will go to jail. They won't. And so, but more importantly, no one should be labeled for that, for what they've done. What is the restorative justice process? What if I'm an elected official, and because of my ignorance, because of my inability to handle power, I end up in this situation? And I'm willing to work out, I don't need an obstinate elected official, but I'm willing to work and do whatever I can to make it right. How do we restore it? And this is the issue even about racism. If someone is found to be a racist, are they a racist forever? How can you restore if that person feels like, I don't mean what Marquise Dawson did when he said he went to Kevin McDonald for restorative justice process. I mean a real restorative justice process where there's every confidence that this person has seen the error of their ways and done what they could to make amends and are committed to never allowing it to happen again. Because people are human. People are desperate. Most people think, especially when you're powerful, that you can get away with it. To this day, when I look at the conviction of Martin Luther Thomas, and I'm just being honest, I'm not only in his district, I'm not a lackey of his, I'm not any of those things. I'm just an alum from USC. And I'm trying to understand, how does a team cut a deal and go scot-free? Why don't they both think that? Why don't they both convict? Mark Ridley Thomas only could do what he did if the dean was going along. So on the one hand, we're approving corruption. On the other hand, we're not. And so, I mean, it's a tough question. But I'm also interested in finding out, because we saw this in DC with the mayor of DC. He was had a crack addiction. And those people voted him back in after he got clean. So I think it's very important to not just emphasize people not being corrupt, because we know power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It is important to think about how do we restore people back to full citizenship. That's what I wish our presidents. Some of them are doing. Some of them do a very much better job than others. But we have to include that, because if in fact you are not guilty, if there's already built within the system a way to restore, then that becomes much easier. that becomes much easier. And oftentimes when you fight and you win in court, guess who knows? You know. But not all the people who have become aware of what. There are probably people in this city right now who still believe that whatever was proven to not be true is true. And yes, the city may have paid you what you paid out. But the emotional and psychological damage to your reputation, the impact it had on your family, hasn't.
Yeah, put a brush on it.
And so it's very important. Yes, people need to be, we need to rid the city of corruption. But one of the ways, based upon the quote, maybe we deal with corruption by stripping people of their power, forcing them to have to listen to their constituents. And we've heard over and over in this that they don't. And so maybe if we have a more equitable partnership between communities and elected officials, maybe we wouldn't have as much corruption. Thank you.
Are there any commissioners who want to get in the queue? Commissioner Schlager.
Thank you. I wanted to turn attention to the neighborhood council, position that's. Recognizing, as Commissioner Field said, there's more to come. I just wanted to flag a couple of points on this for the committee, particularly to consider as we undertake discussion of neighborhood councils, that there's been a big focus on the desire to empower neighborhood councils, and how do we clarify and identify ways that their role can be most effective. I just wanted to add, maybe it's around this kind of cautionary approach, that we try to avoid the inclination of defining the empowerment in an overly bureaucratic way. What we want to create is effective neighborhood council roles, rather than creating more bureaucrats and bureaucracy, right? So our job is not to create another layer of city bureaucracy, but rather a vehicle by which people who want to get involved in their neighborhood can. And the presentation we had and the way the current charter is written, because it was just trying to create something out of nothing, lends itself to a real sort of, just sort of broad structure. And as we experience today, a need for folks to try to figure out their bylaws. We don't want to burden residents who want to become civically engaged to try to mimic, bylaw writers. We want to give them vehicles to engage in activities that are of value on the ground in their neighborhood and in the structure of decision-making in the city. So I said all of that because I know that there's a balance we're going to continue to be striking behind defining things in detail in the charter and letting the department itself create the kind of empowering structures that bring things like the budget advocates and the neighborhood sustainability alliance and the public works, the collaborative of neighborhood councils to the city departments and to the city structure. And so I just wanted to underscore in the pursuit of empowerment that we're not overly prescriptive in such a way that it creates bureaucracy, or rather in a way that enables the department itself to be able to empower neighborhood councils and really support those who are able to be functional and effective. I'll leave it at that high level principle, in part because I want the future committee to hear it, but also so that in citing eventual recommendations, you are distinguishing between methods of empowerment. That there are ways to empower outside of the charter, and that there are definition and clarifications needed in the charter. Thank you very much.
Any other commissioners, want to get in the queue? Commissioner Matt.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. I think Dr. Short wanted to uplift some of the comments that came up during public comments day earlier in the day, and so I think things like community safety came up, police reform and neighborhood access. I think those are things that is supplemental to that government that could be included in consideration of further review. I think that's the more suggested from that for staff and committee that's going to be support.
I do wanna, in closing, I wanna say this commission is gonna have to deal with one really, central question to neighborhood councils. Which is because we've heard a variety of viewpoints. Which I would say on a spectrum of providing neighborhood councils more authority in some local decisions. And other viewpoints that are on the opposite end of that. And I just wanna say to all the commissioners, we are gonna have to tackle that in a real way. But in a real way, there's a diverse set of opinions on this topic. So that's more of a forewarning, and I would appreciate it from staff and as we get into the committee, like navigate a variety of options. Because this commission is gonna have to send a very clear signal very soon on which way we wanna go on that. And so, I'll leave it to Commissioner Thomas to close us out.
You know, I really appreciate that is asked. And what I would also say when it comes to the neighborhood council, I think we need some information. I would like information on the racial makeup of some of these neighborhoods, at least in Saturday. I mean, and the number of complaints. Like, how many complaints have been filed? How many letters have council districts received about something happening in a neighborhood council meeting that should not have happened, that was inappropriate? I think that's very, very important because one of the concerns is that, you know, as I said last time, I text my former neighborhood council president and asked whether or not there was racism, whether or not he'd experienced racism as a person on the neighborhood council. Am I correct about it? That's what I asked him. I said, absolutely. And I know at least 3 of them where it's probably 1930s, 1950s back. This is kind of the San Fernando Valley. Now, again, I don't know about neighborhood councils in Los Angeles, in the city. But I know in the San Fernando Valley, the racism, the racial violence that Black people experience is 1950s. 1950s Valley. And the thought to give more power to people who act this way is just not something that I can support. Now, the question becomes, how will we know? And so I think before we make this decision, these decisions, we need to find out how these neighborhood councils are actually operating in real time. As opposed to getting these neighborhood council impact reports. I love them, but I'm not against neighborhood council. One of my best friends was he helped create this, he was one of the first staff people for neighborhood councils. But it is important. It is important that we do not empower wrong. And so I'm saying that you can't paint with a broad brush. What I'm saying, I am absolutely sure it's not true of every neighborhood council. But I do know at least two in the San Fernando Valley that is absolutely true. And as we have pushed to get young people involved in the neighborhood council. Literally. So we wanted young people to get involved. But then they're not respected. They're not treated fairly. And they're bullied. And nothing is happened. And I'm saying I know this because as an NAACP president, that's how I know. I receive the complaints. And so I would just ask that, I don't know if you would need I don't know how you would request the information, but I would want to know how many complaints from people, and you can do it to tier, people in the neighborhood who have come to neighborhood council meetings, but especially people who are colleagues of council. Women receive the same kind of thing. And my Lord, don't be a woman of color. So that's what I think, that's what I would like to we just.
Sure, just to make sure we got it, so. Racial demographics of all the neighborhood councils or just the valley?
Well, I don't know.
Let's see what's available, and I would say whatever we do for the valley, we should just get it for the entire city, so that it's.
I just know it's a very, very good, and even me and Commissioner Sanchez, that's what we're cheering about. You don't know what I've been through. Yeah, I do know. So that's the thing, and I'm sorry if it takes a long time. So to be clear, I was specifically talking about the San Fernando Valley because I know that it's very bad there. So the demographic makeup of the leadership of the council, like all of the council members, and then complaints specifically dealing with if I don't know if you can categorize it, most of them will put in their complaints, because of my age, or because I'm a woman, and because I'm, a Latina, Black, well, they'll put that in. And so it's very, it's just very, very important to have that kind of information. So that, number one, we can empower those who need to be empowered and mitigate for those that are not. And I think training plays a major role. I think Harvard is great, anti-bias kind of test that you take. Unconscious bias test. I think that should be a part of it. It doesn't mean that it's absolutely true. Doesn't mean it's absolutely true, but when I took it, it was true that I favor young people. So there's bias towards young people that I like young people. That's absolutely true. And so we just need some tools so we can really get at this. If I don't want us making a decision about neighborhood councils, on either side. You know what I mean? Just don't want to say that they're perfectly good or perfectly bad. I want us to be able to uplift those that are doing the right thing and use them as a model. And so we can't do that. We can't do that if we don't know. We don't have the information.
Commissioner Schlatter and Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, I just wanted to add, Commissioner Thomas's point about complaints, that what would be helpful in addition to any data there is what the structure for dealing with complaints is. Because whether we need to delegate some kind of authority, it would just be useful to understand how both complaints are adjudicated and how neighborhood council board members or councilmen, neighborhood council representatives are represented in such a place as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Rose.
If you share your sharing demographic data about the makeup of neighborhood councils, can you also contextualize that with the specific neighborhood it is and what it looks like relative to the people who live there, that you don't?
Any other commissioners in the queue?
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second? I'll second. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the motion to report is received and filed. Commissioners, just want to reiterate that our next meeting, I'll be putting forward a motion for discussion on remote public comments. Are there any future agenda items that the commissioner would like to put on the agenda? Commissioner Stack.
I have 3, hopefully one we can just take. Can just become part of it as an agreement without needing a motion. One, I've asked a number of times for somebody to come and speak who is in opposition to grant choice. But we have to note that Max has worked trying to get Dean Logan, of course, Diego was on the next day and sent me a wonderful article where he, are we making progress on that?
He'll be on. He'll be at the first committee meeting.
Oh, committee meeting, not the general.
Yeah.
Okay. My second is, I asked previously again, to get someone from general services and the CLA's office to come in and tell us if we expand council, whether it be by 2 seats, 4 seats, 6 seats, whatever that number is, that GSA can tell us what it takes to build out the office space. Is it doable in Ferraro council chambers? And how many could be easily added there, and obviously GLA can give us. CLA can give us everything in terms of costs and budgets and such. The third is, I believe we were gonna get reports from City Fabric at each of our meetings to know what they had done. What I would like to suggest is perhaps we could get a written report at each meeting and just have it sent to all the commissioners, and then if there are questions, we could ask Justin any of those questions. So I'm assuming he has the relationship with them and talks to them the most about what they're doing.
Yeah, you know, need a motion for that, happy to, especially these commission meetings are gonna be for the full body, are gonna be a little more spread out, and we'll have a lot more to report. As opposed to from Saturday to today, I didn't have a whole lot of news to report, but you know, since we'll be, you know, going into committees, that makes sense.
But my recollection was, even though I wasn't there, but I watched it, I didn't hear any report that they had done up until that meeting, that Saturday's meeting that took place at the harbor. There's no, maybe it just was an oversight, got overlooked, but I'm just waiting to hear.
I mean, there's my report, which is out, which includes outpatient.
So Commissioner Stein, we will proceed with your recommendations.
Yeah.
It sounds solid.
Great.
Any other commissioners' future agenda items? Commissioner,
Sorry, very quickly, I don't have the agenda item, but I wanna, if we're talking about the additional reports, we talked a lot about the committees. Committees are gonna be developing their own materials. For the sake of the commission as a whole, can we make use of our Google structure here within the city to make the most of Google Drive, our Google calendars, to be able to put all of this stuff in centralized location where all of us have the same access to the same information at the same time.
Well,
We don't have to, and we don't have to search all of our emails every single time.
You know why Jonathan just stood up, it's all that Jonathan's,
Okay, but I want you to keep in mind that we're looking for the background material that is distributed to commissions. And that can be a comment, and that can be, I'm talking about the public information.
We post that all.
And it's, all of it is on the website. I don't wanna have to search every meeting date for the materials. I would like it to be immediately available to us as a package of materials. Right now, what we have is emails and a website that I've got specifically by date. So I'm looking at using our infrastructure here to be able to provide publicly available material to us in a quickly accessible way. Next.
City, if I may, because I agree with this, if I may offer this question. Is it permissible that that only documents that have been publicly posted, that after they have been publicly posted, get put on a centralized shared drive, that all the commissioners have access to, only those documents are, that we can do that?
So it is possible with a big asterisk, because it depends on what you do with it. So the actual dissemination of documents, if it, for example, the city clerk's website now says all the documents that go in, it is publicly accessible at all times, not an issue there. But Google Drive is sort of a problem, parallel, depending on how you use it. So because Google Drive allows you, you have a private Google Drive, and then anybody can create a document that's something to look at, or comment on. That's the problem, and I know a lot of people have talked about optics of it. I would be hesitant to recommend the use of Google Drive for that. But having the, I realize it's up to the staff if they have the capacity to do so, putting together packets and emailing each of the commissioners, if there's the ability to do so, would be preferable. Because that way, everything's funneling through the executive director, instead of Google Drive, essentially everybody functions as their own admin. Can add and edit.
In the interest of time, I share the interest of the intent, okay, let me get some options to provide. I do believe though, calendar invites with all the committee meetings and all the commission meetings is something that someone's gonna have to tell me why we can't do it, which I'm happy to have a discussion, but I fully expect that we can.
Thank you, and I recognize if we have limitations, if we could all just get the same direction about what we should be doing, because right now what we're getting is just a flurry of emails every time there's a new document. And every time there's a document update, and it's not conducive.
We're on that, we will figure this out, Commissioner Gallagher.
Just wanting to voice my opinion on this, and also my understanding that planning does this with all the commissions, that every planning commission does this effect. So I share all of that.
So I'm not really to comment on that, because I don't work directly with the planning department. I believe that there is a solution to this. I don't know that now is the time to figure it out, but I understand that you obviously will be available to work with Justin and Max and company to try and find something that will solve the problem. It might not be Google Drive itself.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Thank you for raising it, Mr. Shire. We all managed to do that.
The things that we share, like, I mean, I hate to say this, but my colleague here, are like, what are we doing? I don't believe me. Like, don't we have anything else? Real business, because I was looking at this and I saw people that already presented, I saw presenters, and I'm like, oh, this must be some old things, you know? And so, one of the things that would be helpful is that if we have another kind of special meeting request, or we're having a special meeting, that we clearly understand what that means, right? Because again, I thought after a special meeting, even though I heard it, and now that I'm elected, I thought we were done. Yes, so he told me, wait a minute. I almost died.
Commissioner Thomas, I will make sure that was
Thank
the
you.
case.
Thank
And so we are.
I know, yes.
You got it. Is there, I will request, unless there are any other items to give commissioners, is there a motion to adjourn? So, all right, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Commissioners, I just wanna, Commissioner Fields had a lot of difficulty getting out of the garage this